Chapter 54-43. The heavens did not disappoint those who persevered. Jiu Fei and Yang Lai searched the wasteland for survivors. When they found the 9 nether races' territory, they finally found a survivor. This survivor was a little special. He was a giant skeleton. This skeleton was actually in the middle stage of the Eternal Realm. Of course, this was also why this skeleton ancestor was able to survive the destruction of Flame World. The skeleton ancestor had survived the destruction of the world, but he couldn't resist Jiu Fei. After being ruthlessly beaten by Jiu Fei, the skeleton ancestor had no choice but to admit defeat. He had to admit defeat to the end. If he didn't submit, he would die. The skeleton ancestor had even survived the destruction of the world. He naturally wasn't willing to die like this. To the skeleton ancestor, living was more important than anything else. After Jiu Fei planted a forbidden technique on the skeleton old ancestor, the skeleton old ancestor completely submitted to him. The people of the 9 nether race hid in a small world to take refuge. The 9 nether race's small world was called the 9 nether small world. It was a true netherworld. There was only one way to open the 9 nether small world, and that was to blow the bone flute or have the skeleton ancestor, the 9 nether race's ancestor, open it himself. Since he had the bone flute in hand, the skeleton ancestor naturally wouldn't use the second method to open the 9 nether small world. At this time, the bone flute in the skeleton ancestor's hand sounded on its own. The void in front of the skeleton ancestor immediately trembled. Soon, a door of light appeared in the void. "Why isn't anyone coming out?" the skeleton ancestor said in surprise. "It can't be the same as the flame race, right?" Yang Lai said. Whoosh! The skeleton ancestor directly rushed into the door of light. He had guarded the 9 nether small world for countless years and had never opened it even once. He didn't know what was going on in the 9 nether small world. Jiu Fei furrowed his brows and took a step forward, entering the netherworld small world. Yang Lai thought about it. Although he was hesitant, his master, Jiu Fei, had entered the 9 nether small world. How could he not follow behind his master? Thereupon, he braced himself and entered the netherworld small world. The instant Jiu Fei entered the 9 nether small world, a deathly aura assaulted him. The entire 9 nether pocket world was dark and gloomy. The entire pocket world was enveloped in a layer of terrifying death aura. From time to time, huge demonic shadows would appear in the void and then dissipate in the void. It was something that floated between heaven and earth like a ghost. Why is there such a thing here? At this moment, the skeleton old ancestor was shocked to the extreme. This thing was extremely strange and horrifying. It was something that was formed from the remnant consciousness of a supreme being who had perished. This demonic shadow had no emotions and only knew how to devour living beings. When Jiu Fei appeared in the 9 nether pocket, traces of demonic chi immediately rushed towards Jiu Fei. The demonic chi condensed and a demonic shadow immediately appeared in front of Jiu Fei, directly pouncing towards Jiu Fei. "Master, be careful." When the skeleton old ancestor saw this scene, he couldn't help but feel shocked. If Jiu Fei died, he would also be buried with him. After all, his life was linked with Jiu Fei's. However, the skeleton old ancestor was so depressed that he wanted to vomit blood. If Jiu Fei died, he would be buried with him. If he died, nothing would happen to Jiu Fei. After all, Jiu Fei was his master. Bam! When the demonic shadow was 3 feet away from Jiu Fei, it directly exploded, turning into strands of demonic chi that dissipated in the void. What's going on? When the skeleton old ancestor saw this scene, he was instantly stunned. These demonic shadows actually couldn't get close to Jiu Fei? As an old ancestor of the 9 nether clan, he naturally knew how powerful these demonic shadows were. Even he would have to take a detour if he encountered them. The strands of demonic chi quickly condensed again, and the demonic shadow appeared in the void once more. The demonic shadow once again rushed towards Jiu Fei. Bam! With another muffled sound, the demonic shadow once again exploded 3 feet away from Jiu Fei. At this time, Yang Lai also came in. Then, the demonic shadow condensed once again. This time, the demonic shadow directly pounced towards Yang Lai. What's going on? Yang Lai was indescribably shocked. He didn't know the details of this demonic shadow, so he directly dodged it. However, the demonic shadow chased after Yang Lai like a shadow. Master, what the hell is this? Yang Lai kept moving quickly in the void, but even with his extreme Dao rank cultivation, he couldn't get rid of the demonic shadow's entanglement. This somewhat surprised Ji Yufei. It's just some remnant thoughts fused together and transformed into a foreign species. Ji Yufei was able to see through the demonic shadow with a single glance. This demonic shadow was indestructible. Of course, it wasn't an easy thing to destroy these strange things. However, if Ji Yufei wanted to destroy these things, he had at least a dozen methods. However, it was impossible for Yang Lai to destroy this demonic shadow. Because with Yang Lai's cultivation, he simply didn't have this ability. Therefore, Yang Lai could only be chased by this demonic shadow to the heavens and into the earth. He was in an incomparably sorry state, but he couldn't do anything about it. Master, save me Yang Lai didn't dare to let this demonic shadow pounce on him. He had just obtained a corporeal body, and he didn't want to lose it so soon. Yang Lai shouted and rushed towards Ji Yufei. Get lost. With a wave of Ji Yufei's right hand, the demonic shadow that was unwaveringly chasing Yang Lai directly exploded in the void, turning into a mass of demonic qi. However, within the demonic qi, countless demonic threads were entangled and intertwined. Soon, the demonic shadow appeared in the void again. However, because of Ji Yufei's obstruction, Yang Lai successfully escaped to Ji Yufei's side. At this time, because Ji Yufei's body emitted a strong vitality, it unexpectedly attracted a lot of demonic shadows. The whole world became dusky. However, Ji Yufei simply didn't care about these demonic shadows. It seems that everyone here is dead, Ji Yufei said gloomily. Since such a strange creature had appeared in the Nine Nether Small World, naturally, no one would be able to survive. This was because these things didn't have any intelligence and only knew how to kill. As long as one was pounced on by these things, even an extreme-grade supreme expert would die. Therefore, it was very likely that the people in this so-called Nine Nether Small World had already been devoured by these demonic shadows. What? The skeleton ancestor was greatly alarmed when he heard this. In the next moment, he disappeared into the void without a trace. Follow me, and don't wander around, Ji Yufei said and walked forward at a moderate pace. Nine Nether City was the headquarters of the Nine Nether race in the Nine Nether Small World. The skeleton ancestor naturally went to Nine Nether City. Chapter 54-44. As Ji Yufei walks in the dusky world, more and more specters appear around him. Master, we're surrounded. Yang Lai looks at the specters around him in shock. There are hundreds of specters around him. How can there be so many specters here? Ji Yufei is very strong, but Yang Lai still doesn't dare to take him lightly. It must be known that these specters can threaten the existence of an extreme Dao Supreme. What are you afraid of? I'm here, so don't be so nervous, Ji Yufei says indifferently. Those specters only surround Ji Yufei's group, but they don't pounce on Ji Yufei's group. This makes Yang Lai very curious. In the end, how did the master do it? Ji Yufei leads a large group of specters towards Joyo City. This scene is absolutely shocking, because there have never been so many specters gathered together in the Joyo microworld. Soon, a huge city appears in front of Ji Yufei and Yang Lai. There is no sign of life coming from the huge city, which makes Ji Yufei a little unhappy. It seems that his guess is right. The people of the Nine Underworld race are probably all dead. Just as Ji Yufei arrives in front of the gate of Joyo City with a large group of specters, a ball of divine light suddenly appears high in the sky. This ball of divine light directly breaks through the layer of devil qi in the sky and shines in all directions. The specters surrounding Ji Yufei and Yang Lai are illuminated by the divine light descending from the sky. One by one, they dissipate into the void, turning into devil threads that rush into the ground. It turns out that these specters are afraid of the divine light in the sky. What's going on? Yang Lai looks at this scene in shock. Soon, all the specters disappear. The entire Joyo microworld is also illuminated. The devil chi that shrouded the entire microworld is also dispelled, and the whole world is bright. This microworld actually has a god sun? Yang Lai looks up at the ball of divine light in the sky, inexplicably shocked. What's so strange about it? Ji Fei said disapprovingly. The ball of divine light in the sky was not a real divine sun. It was just a slightly larger divine pearl. Someone used great magic power to refine such a divine pearl and embedded it high up in the sky. This divine pearl could not move. On the other hand, the real divine sun in the world could move and move according to its trajectory in this world. The netherworld small world also had the alternation of day and night, and the alternation of day and night was completed by the divine pearl in the sky. This small world was still far from being a real big world. Just as this part of the world shone brightly, countless life auras suddenly appeared in Joyo City. That works. When Ji Fei sensed the aura of life in Joyo City, his eyebrows couldn't help but twitch. It was really a case of finding a village at the darkest hour. Rumble, the heavy city gate slowly opened, and a group of people rushed out of the city. The one in the lead was the skeleton ancestor that Ji Fei had just subdued. Behind the skeleton ancestor was a large group of people from the Netherworld tribe. What surprised Ji Fei was that these people from the Netherworld tribe were all experts, and there were even 2 eternal realm existences among them. Among these people from the Netherworld tribe, there were quite a number of Supreme Realm experts, a total of 9. However, this kind of strength was much weaker than the Yang tribe. After all, the Yang clan still had a half-step peerless realm expert. However, there weren't any half-step peerless stage experts among the Netherworld race's experts. Quick, come and greet the master. The skeleton ancestor led a group of people to greet Ji Fei. Greetings, master. The people from the Netherworld tribe all knelt to greet Ji Fei. Ji Fei was a little surprised to see this scene. In such a short time, the skeleton ancestor had brainwashed these people. They actually all submitted to him? Very good. Get up. Ji Fei said with a wave of his hand. Thank you, master. The people from the Netherworld tribe all stood up. In fact, Ji Fei didn't know what kind of bitter life these people from the Netherworld tribe lived in the Netherworld small world. Because of the existence of those strange demonic shadows, the people from the Netherworld tribe were like rats. They hid underground at night and only came out during the day. Moreover, it wasn't always safe during the day. Because there were accidents during the day when demonic chi enveloped the heavenly pearl, those demonic shadows would immediately come out. In the eyes of the people from the Netherworld tribe, those demonic shadows were terrifying death gods that had reaped the lives of the people from the Netherworld tribe for countless years. Otherwise, why would the Netherworld tribe only have so few people left? In fact, if Ji Fei and the others hadn't come, they wouldn't have been able to hold on for much longer. The number of demonic shadows kept increasing, and some of them could even enter the Netherworld city at night. This was because the defensive formation of the Netherworld city had become unstable in the past few thousand years. Therefore, Ji Fei was simply a savior to the people of the Netherworld tribe. In fact, the skeleton old ancestor didn't need to waste his breath. The people of the Netherworld tribe immediately submitted to Ji Fei. After successfully subduing the Netherworld tribe, Ji Fei was in a good mood. He didn't stay idle either. He directly refined the entire Netherworld small world into his own world and turned it into the Underworld province. The Underworld province was the territory of the Netherworld tribe. Under the illumination of the true divine sun, the undying remnant consciousness in the Underworld province completely disappeared. Those demonic shadows became a thing of the past. No one from the Netherworld tribe expected their master to be so powerful that he could resolve a huge problem for them with a simple gesture. The people of the Netherworld tribe were even more grateful to Ji Fei. Just as Ji Fei was refining the Netherworld small world, the wasteland suddenly shook violently and a spatial crack appeared in the void above the wasteland. Countless figures rushed out from the spatial crack. After that, the entire wasteland underwent a shocking change. A divine spring of life appeared on the wasteland and a powerful life aura spread out in all directions with the divine spring of life as the center. After the first divine spring of life appeared, the second divine spring of life also emerged from the ground. Spiritual energy soared into the sky and the vitality of the entire wasteland recovered quickly. The wasteland that had been silent for countless years actually started to recover. A total of 9 divine springs of life appeared on the wasteland, and the concentration of spiritual energy in the entire wasteland increased rapidly. A world that was already destroyed and lifeless was actually regaining its vitality and reviving. Just what was going on? At this time, the wasteland became lively. One by one, the small worlds hidden in the void opened up, and the forces that came out from those small worlds started to fight for the divine springs of life. Very quickly, the 9 divine springs of life had a master. When Jiu Fei came out of his own world after settling the people of the Netherworld tribe, he was dumbfounded by the scene on the wasteland. What's going on? Who can tell me what's going on? Jiu Fei was really speechless. He was trying his best to find survivors before, but who would have thought that these survivors would jump out on their own? Master, this, Yang Lai is also scared silly by this scene. Go and find out what's going on. Jiu Fei said to Yang Lai. Yes, Master. Yang Lai immediately went to find out. This guy was the old ancestor of the Yang clan. In the distant past, he knew a lot of experts and quickly found out. Master, the world is starting to recover. Yang Lai came back and said with a solemn expression. What do you mean by that? Could it be that this wasteland can recover? Can it evolve into a new world? Jiu Fei was really speechless. A super world was already on the decline, yet such a super world could recover. Was there such a thing? He had never seen a destroyed world recover on its own. Divine Spring of Life. When Jiu Fei sensed the existence of the Divine Spring of Life, he really couldn't help but be moved. Could this be the reason for the wasteland's recovery? At this time, the battle for the 9 divine springs of life was still going on. All the forces were envious of the divine spring of life and wanted to obtain it. As a result, many of the guys who just came out of the small world died. Do you want to come out and fight for hegemony? Jiu Fei suddenly said to Yang Lai. Master, this slave wants to. I hope Master can fulfill my wish. Yang Lai hurriedly said. I will fulfill your wish. Jiu Fei waved his right hand, and the old ancestors of the Yang clan immediately appeared in the void in front of him. Soon, these old ancestors of the Yang clan who were still sleeping were awakened by Jiu Fei using a special method. After the old ancestor of the Yang clan woke up and learned the cause and effect of the matter, he directly attacked Jiu Fei, wanting to kill Jiu Fei. However, in the next second, this old ancestor was beaten like a dog by Jiu Fei. Then, the entire upper echelon of the Yang clan submitted. They had no choice but to submit. Even the strongest old ancestor of the Yang clan was beaten like a dog by Jiu Fei. The others naturally became obedient. Soon, the Yang clan attacked. Their opponent was the primordial Meng race, one of the 10 great forces of the flame world. The primordial Meng race was extremely powerful and had already occupied a divine spring of life. However, the Yang clan wasn't weak either. Moreover, they had the support of Jiu Fei. Yang clan, what do you want? Can't you follow the rules? An old ancestor of the primordial Meng race roared at Yang Wu. TCH, Hong Yi, you despicable bastard, how dare you talk about rules in front of me? Yang Wu said disdainfully. Just do it. Hong Yi said and immediately attacked. Do you think you have teeth to bite me? Yang Wu sneered and went forward. The 2 experts were locked in a fierce battle. These 2 guys were in the extreme Dao realm. This battle caused quite a commotion and alerted the other forces. However, the other forces just watched the show and had no intention of interfering. Jiu Fei was also watching the show. He never thought that the wasteland would recover one day. Chapter 54-45. The awakening of the wasteland and the shaking of the earth gave Jiu Fei hope. He wanted to find sacred Lord Shu Tian for revenge. He originally thought it was hopeless. Who would have thought that the destroyed world would awaken? At this time, Yang Wu and Hong Yi started fighting. You will die a horrible death if you dare to target our divine spring of life, Hong Yi said coldly. The extreme Dao Yuan Qi in his body surged, and a layer of crystal light flowed on his skin. He gave off the feeling that he was invincible. Che, Who do you think you are? I will leave your corpse intact. Yang Wu was extremely confident. His gaze was like lightning, and an extremely obscure and dangerous aura was emitted from his body. He took a step forward and suddenly appeared in front of Hong Yi like a phantom. After that, he directly threw a punch at Hong Yi. Astral wind suddenly rose, vast and mighty. This was a simple and unadorned punch, but it had an unbelievable power that could turn something rotten into something miraculous. Hong Yi found it difficult to block, and he couldn't even retreat. Hong Yi's heart shook. This guy's cultivation seemed to be stronger than before the flame world was destroyed. Plus, he controlled the rhythm of the battle with one move and forced Hong Yi into a passive position. Yang Wu wasn't just an expert, he was also an expert with rich battle experience. Even though he had been in slumber for countless years, his battle experience wouldn't disappear. Roar! Hong Yi let out a furious roar. Since he couldn't avoid it, there was no need for him to do so. He threw out a punch as well. In an instant, the golden light was like a tidal wave, rushing towards Yang Wu's fist with an extremely imposing aura. Hong Yi's first move was the golden element fist. As he punched out, a golden light immediately surged out from his body, causing him to look like he was wearing a golden armor. It was impossible to look at him directly. It's the five-element fist. Ji Yufei, who was watching the battle from afar, was surprised. The primordial chaos race also cultivated the five-element theurgy. Actually, in any world, the power of the five elements was the most basic power of heaven and earth. Therefore, it wasn't strange that countless beings cultivated the power of the five elements. However, this Hong Yi of the primordial chaos race used the five-element fist. It only surprised Ji Yufei a little. Bang! The two fists collided in an instant, and a transparent ripple visible to the naked eye spread out from the point of impact. The entire space seemed to shake. Two silhouettes flew backward like lightning, and then collided with each other like two bolts of lightning. Boom! The two of them punched each other again. There was nothing fancy about it. This was purely a collision of strength. Continuous attacks, muffled like thunder, shook the sky and earth. The two extreme Dao experts were like phantoms, emitting terrifying energy fluctuations as they moved rapidly in the air, engaged in an intense battle. Everywhere it passed, rocks were sent flying and the ground cracked. It was incomparably terrifying. Extreme Dao realm powerhouses were still very destructive in this wasteland. Metal fist. Hong Yi let out a low roar and threw another punch towards Yang Wu. Resplendent metal elemental energy seemed to have enveloped the entire heaven and earth. Waves of air swept towards Yang Wu with earth-shattering force. Reverse the universe. Yang Wu's hands moved, and a mysterious and strange aura appeared between his hands. A strange fluctuation was emitted along with the trajectory of his strokes. Buzz! The void shook and twisted. The metal fist force that swept towards Yang Wu was completely swallowed by the void. In the next moment, the force rushed out of the void. The metal element fist force that rushed out from the void actually blasted back at Hong Yi. Ji Yufei was shocked to see this. Yang Wu's move was very similar to the Chaos Reversal secret skill, one of the 9 secrets of Immortal Path. However, Ji Yufei knew that the divine power that Yang Wu displayed was definitely not the Chaos Reversal secret skill. Hong Yi was also shocked. He did not expect that Yang Wu could actually reverse his fist force. This was simply equivalent to the fist force of his metal fist being returned to him. How is this possible? The surrounding powerhouses could not help but be shocked to see this scene. When did Yang Wu cultivate such a divine power? He was able to give Yang Wu a taste of his own medicine and reverse his opponent's attack. It was really terrifying. If Yang Wu mastered such a divine power, wouldn't he be in an invincible position? The fist force that was reversed was turbulent and unstoppable. The golden radiance was dazzling and in an instant, it rushed to the front of Hong Yi. Preposterous. Hong Yi's long hair danced in the wind as if he had gone crazy. Yang Wu actually used his own strength to attack him. This shocked and angered him. He did not dodge or evade, but threw another punch forward. This punch was also the metal fist, but it was different from the previous one. This punch seemed to have triggered the endless power of the metal element in the heaven and earth. All of it surged forward with earth-shattering force. It was majestic and unstoppable. Boom, boom, boom. The two monstrous fist forces collided in an instant. The ground within a radius of a few thousand miles cracked, as if doomsday had arrived. A figure flew out from the explosion of the golden wave. Hong Yi was really depressed to the extreme. He was actually repelled by his own strength. It was really frustrating. Yang Wu was unparalleled. He reversed the universe and no technique could touch him. Yang Wu's display of this kind of divine ability stunned many people. Ha ha! Don't resist pointlessly. Just die obediently. Yang Wu laughed heartily as he strode through the void, chasing after Hong Yi, who was sent flying backwards. In fact, the Yang clan chose to attack the Grand Mist Divine Race because the Yang clan and the Grand Mist Divine Race were enemies. Before the Flame World was destroyed, the two clans had been fighting endlessly. Hong Yi was forced back, but his battle intent was still strong. His body emitted a piercing golden radiance as the power of the metal element covered his body. Although he was at a disadvantage, Yang Wu couldn't really hurt him. Ji Fei couldn't help but nod when he saw this scene. There were still many brave warriors in the Grand Mist Divine Race. Golden Sun shattering heaven. Hong Yi unleashed his ultimate move. Although he was retreating, a ball of divine light rushed out of his body like a divine sun and blasted towards Yang Wu, who was chasing after him. Hee, watch me capture the golden sun in one net. A cruel smile appeared on Yang Wu's face. He retreated quickly and waved his hands. Countless lines of fire instantly spread out in the air, forming a huge fire net that flew towards the divine sun net. Hong Yi's golden sun was like throwing itself into the net. Hong Yi was dumbfounded. The golden sun he shot out was actually caught by his opponent in one net. After that, there was nothing else. His divine sun was directly refined by his opponent. Again, the fire net appeared once again and fell on Hong Yi's head. Are you still not going to die this time? Yang Wu was inwardly pleased. Since he personally took action, he naturally won. However, before he could rejoice, his expression changed. Just at this moment, Hong Yi actually directly charged into Yang Wu's fire net and blasted out a punch towards the fire net that enveloped him. There was no glaring light rushing out, no strong energy wave. It was just an ordinary punch. However, under Yang Wu's incredulous gaze, a huge hole was blasted in Yang Wu's fire net. While Yang Wu was still in shock, Hong Yi moved like a phantom and instantly appeared in front of Yang Wu. Without any hesitation, Hong Yi directly punched towards Yang Wu's chest. Reverse heaven and earth. Yang Wu shouted loudly and waved his hands. That strange power once again gushed out from his hands and formed a frightening void domain. Hong Yi didn't dare to be careless. He had made a mistake just now. He had underestimated Yang Wu. Hong Yi was also very familiar with Yang Wu. Before Yang World was destroyed, they had fought and Yang Wu had always been at a disadvantage. But now, Yang Wu had actually cultivated such a strange and mysterious mystique that could actually reverse his attack. Hong Yi couldn't help but look at him in a different light. Hong Yi was an extremely experienced person after all. He quickly thought of a way to deal with Yang Wu's move. Yang Wu is going to be unlucky. Ji Fei, who was watching from afar, said. At this time, Yang Wu's ever-victorious mystique actually failed. He couldn't move Hong Yi's fist force at all. Hong Yi's fist force was as immovable as a mountain. Yang Wu was shocked. Bang! Hong Yi's fist landed on Yang Wu's chest. In that instant, his fist force erupted like a volcano. Yang Wu spat out a mouthful of blood as he was sent flying. You're not the only one who cultivated a mystique. I have also cultivated a fist art. Moreover, this fist art of mine is specialized in breaking your mystique. Hong Yi sneered. Although these people had hidden in the pocket dimension before Yang World was destroyed, they hadn't been idling. Even when they were asleep, they could still practice their mystiques and battle techniques in their sea of consciousness. Ha, trash of the Yang race, scram back to where you came from. Otherwise, today will be the day your race is annihilated. Another ancestor of the primordial chaos divine race walked out with a loud laugh. At this time, Yang Lai rushed out and caught Yang Wu, who was flying back. Yang Wu's injuries weren't light. His entire chest had collapsed from Hong Yi's punch, and his chest was stuck to his back. Of course, this was only an injury on his Dao physique. The real injury was the destructive fist force that had invaded Yang Wu's body. The fist force was still wreaking havoc in Yang Wu's body, destroying his vitality. Yang Lai tried to force the fist force out of Yang Wu's body, but he was nearly injured by the fist force. An Eternal Realm Yang race's ancestor finally managed to force the fist force out of Yang Wu's body. Yang Hui, how about we spar? The primordial chaos divine race's ancestor stared at the Yang race's ancestor who had helped Yang Wu force out the fist force. The Yang race's ancestor named Yang Hui sneered. He didn't say anything, nor did he have any intention to make a move. He immediately retreated. Haha, since when did the Yang race's people become cowards? The primordial chaos divine race's ancestor sneered. Chapter 54-46. An already destroyed world actually recovered. Such a thing made Ji Yufei feel a little incredulous. This flame world wasn't just an ordinary destruction. Instead, the entire world shrank and turned into a ball. Even the starry sky and earth were tightly compressed together. This way, all living beings in the flame world would be squeezed to death. Only experts at the extreme grade and above could break the shackles, but they still couldn't escape the fate of death. That Yang Lai was able to retain a strand of his divine sense. It was already lucky that his soul hadn't been completely destroyed. If other experts wanted to survive, there was only one way, and that was to hide in their own small world and completely close it. Now, those who hid in the small world unexpectedly returned at the same time. The divine spring of life actually appeared on the wasteland. It was the endless death energy that condensed after the death of countless living beings. It was a supreme life force born from extreme death. 9 divine springs of life appeared on the huge wasteland. The wasteland's life force quickly recovered. Oases began to appear near the divine springs of life. Those who hid in the small world were like supreme rulers. They descended on the wasteland and began to encircle and occupy it. The people of the Yang clan were all defeated by Ji Yufei. Ji Yufei subdued them all. This made the old ancestors of the Yang clan almost die from anger. However, there was nothing they could do. It was better to live than to die. Moreover, only by living would there be hope. However, from a certain point of view, submitting to Ji Yufei wasn't a bad thing. Ji Yufei was strong enough. The half-step-old ancestor of the Yang clan naturally didn't dare to submit to Ji Yufei. Therefore, he jumped out to challenge Ji Yufei. The result was that the old ancestor of the Yang clan was directly knocked out by Ji Yufei. Knocking out an old ancestor with one slap, and a half-step-old ancestor at that. This made the old ancestors of the Yang clan dumbfounded. Then, everyone in the Yang clan became obedient to Ji Yufei. Who told Ji Yufei's fist to be harder than theirs? Ji Yufei had long since seen through this point. Regardless of the world, whoever's fist was stronger would be the boss, and they would be able to decide everything. The Yang clan and the Grand Mist divine race were arch-enemies. Hence, the Yang clan had set their sights on the divine spring of life that was occupied by the Grand Mist divine race. However, it wouldn't be easy to snatch the divine spring of life from the hands of the Grand Mist divine race. What a bad start. The first battle between the Yang clan and the Grand Mist divine race ended with the Yang clan's defeat. The Yang clan had no choice but to retreat. TCH, you dare to have designs on our god race with just this bit of ability. You must be tired of living. One of the Grand Mist divine race's ancestors sneered. Don't underestimate the Yang clan. Their strength is still there. That Yang Wu is just a little guy. The Grand Mist divine clan's ancestors were sitting cross-legged near the divine spring of life, greedily devouring the boundless vitality emitted by the divine spring of life. To these super old-timers, such pure life essence was more useful than any miraculous spirit pill. The divine spring of life was the source of the Grand Mist divine race's confidence. We didn't complete our mission. Please punish us, Master. The group of old ancestors of the Yang clan came before Ji Yufei and knelt down. Forget it. The Grand Mist divine race had the upper hand. It's not your fault, Ji Yufei said indifferently. The primordial chaos divine race was guarding the divine spring of life. Hence, their ancestors were able to recover very quickly. As for the Yang clan's ancestors, they were hiding in an alternate void. They relied on absorbing spiritual energy to maintain their cultivation. How could they be a match for the Grand Mist divine race's ancestors? Get up, Ji Yufei said. Yes. The Yang clan's ancestors finally dared to stand up. It's just the divine spring of life, Ji Yufei said as he waved his right hand. A spatial crack appeared in the void, and a powerful life aura rushed out from the crack. The Yang clan's ancestors were shocked when they sensed the life aura. The life aura coming from the spatial crack was much stronger than the life aura from the divine spring of life that the Grand Mist divine race had occupied. What's going on? The Yang clan's ancestors exclaimed in shock. Go in. I'll give you 3 days to train with the Grand Mist divine race, Ji Yufei said. Yes, Master. The Yang clan's ancestors were excited. Master is giving us a chance to settle the score with the Grand Mist divine race. Then, the old ancestors of the Yang clan entered the world behind the spatial crack one by one. 3 days was enough for them to recover to their peak condition. After the patriarchs of the Yang clan had entered his inner world, Ji Yufei waved his right hand and the spatial crack in the void disappeared. Following that, Huang Xiaolong headed to the Grand Mist divine race's territory. A streak of light strolled through the Grand Mist divine race's territory. The Grand Mist divine race's ancestors were shocked and enraged. Where did this bastard come from? Ji Yufei walked through the Grand Mist divine race's territory as though there was no one there. Everywhere he went, the Grand Mist divine race's ancestors couldn't help but attack Ji Yufei. However, all their attacks were useless against Ji Yufei. Even a primogenitor of the Grand Mist divine race's attack was neutralized by Ji Yufei. Ji Yufei's boundless martial physique was like a bottomless pit that devoured all the attacks from the Grand Mist divine race's ancestors. The Grand Mist divine race's ancestors were terrified. Fortunately, Ji Yufei left after circling around their territory. The ancestors of the Grand Mist divine race heaved a sigh of relief when they saw that Ji Yufei didn't attack them. After leaving the Grand Mist divine race's territory, Ji Yufei appeared in the Grand Mist demon's territory. Where did this lunatic come from? He dares to barge into my race's territory alone? The Grand Mist demon's ancestors sneered and ridiculed Ji Yufei when they saw him. However, in the next moment, the Grand Mist demon's jaws dropped to the ground as they stared at Huang Xiaolong walking right into their defensive formation. How is this possible? The Grand Mist demon's ancestors were dumbfounded. Huang Xiaolong had walked right through their defensive formation and headed straight for the heavenly spring of life they were guarding. How could they do that? The Grand Mist demon's ancestors attacked Huang Xiaolong together. Various kinds of demonic weapons flew towards Ji Yufei. However, Ji Yufei didn't even make a move. All the demonic weapons flying towards him were sent flying away. What? The Grand Mist demon's ancestors were scared out of their wits. Ji Yufei didn't say anything. He continued to stroll around the Grand Mist demon's territory before leaving. On this day, all the forces in the wasteland were visited by the same person. Then, all the forces in the wasteland knew that a nearly invincible existence had appeared. All the forces in the wasteland felt immense pressure. Chapter 54-47. Ji Yufei walked on the wasteland and visited all 9 divine springs of life. These divine springs of life were the creation of the world, life born from extreme death. 9 divine springs of life had appeared at once. Even Ji Yufei's expression changed slightly. Because the presence of life contained in these 9 divine springs of life was too great, and the 9 divine springs of life had just been formed. The 9 divine springs of life had great room for growth. The appearance of divine springs of life on a wasteland was of great significance. This meant that this wasteland had a chance to recover. Flame World had been destroyed for countless years, but at this time, this wasteland had life again, and had a chance to grow into a world again. For the survivors of Flame World, this was a chance for them to rule the world. They were the first group of beings to recover from this world. They were the progenitors of this world. But now, an unforeseen event had occurred. A fellow who had popped out of nowhere was actually able to enter and exit their territory as he pleased, as though there was no one there. Also, all of their attacks could not do anything to this person. The primordial chaos demons, the primordial chaos god race, and all the surviving factions were shocked. No one knew the origins of this person. No one knew the origins of this person. There was definitely no such person in Flame World. Was he in existence from that legendary world? Many people speculated that if this person really came from that world, then it was not a good thing for them. The destruction of Flame World was not a coincidence. There was a hand secretly pushing all of this. The superfactions of Flame World suspected that the destruction of Flame World was the handiwork of someone from that world. However, they did not have any evidence. However, there was a mysterious faction that had attacked the other superfactions of Flame World when Flame World was destroyed. Longevity Sect had been destroyed by that mysterious faction. Because of this, the surviving factions of Flame World strengthened their defenses. No one dared to underestimate Gu Fei because they were greatly frightened by Gu Fei. However, in the next 3 days, Gu Fei seemed to have disappeared. He did not appear in the sights of the surviving factions of Flame World. However, the surviving factions of Flame World did not relax because of this. 3 days later, Gu Fei appeared in the seclusion grounds of the Yang clan's patriarchs. Gu Fei's inner world had transformed to a near-perfect state, and there was also the divine spring of life in his inner world. His divine spring of life was not inferior to the divine spring of life in the wasteland. At this time, the fire race's old ancestors were sitting cross-legged on the rocks around the divine spring of life. They were absorbing the life essence of the divine spring of life. Not bad. Gu Fei appeared above the divine spring of life. He immediately sensed the changes in the bodies of the Yang clan's ancestors. Compared to 3 days ago, these fellows' life force was several times more exuberant. These guys had almost recovered. "Wake up," Gu Fei said. His voice was like a morning bell. It directly woke up the forefathers of the Yang clan who were in a deep meditative state. "Master, greetings, Master." The Yang clan's old ancestors were shocked when they saw Gu Fei. They hastily knelt on the ground. 3 days are up. You should go out. Gu Fei said indifferently. "Master, it's already 3 days. Yang Lai said with dissatisfaction. He wanted to continue cultivating like this, but he knew it was impossible. They were lucky to be able to cultivate here for 3 days. Gu Fei did not speak. He waved his right hand in the air. In the next moment, a spatial crack appeared in the void. Then, he waved his hand again, and the Yang clan's old ancestors immediately disappeared from his inner world. One after another, powerful auras appeared on the wasteland, alerting the surviving forces, especially the ancestors of the Grand Mist divine race. They were very familiar with these powerful auras. They were the old fellows of their mortal enemies, the Yang clan. This is troublesome. The Grand Mist race's old ancestors knew they were in deep trouble. As expected, the Yang clan's old ancestors killed their way to the Grand Mist race's territory. This time, the Yang clan's old ancestors seemed different. "Hongyi, come out and die." The Yang clan's ancestor Yang Wu stepped out to challenge the Grand Mist divine race's ancestor Hongyi. "You've lost to me, yet you still dare to come forward to die." Hongyi rushed out of the Grand Mist race's formation. "Haha, the one dying today isn't me. It's you." Yang Wu laughed. In the past 3 days, not only had his injuries healed, but his cultivation and battle strength had also increased. This was definitely a blessing in disguise. How is this possible? When Hongyi sensed the Yang clan's old ancestor's aura, his face changed. He had just injured this guy 3 days ago. In such a short time, not only had his injuries healed, but his cultivation and battle strength had also increased. Cut the crap. Kill. Yang Wu didn't bother speaking nonsense with his sworn enemy. He took a step forward and sent a fist flying towards Hongyi. Golden Sun Fist. Hongyi didn't dare to delay, and he immediately used his ultimate move, Golden Sun Fist. Boom! 2 fists smashed into each other in an instant. 2 fist energies exploded, and 2 figures were sent flying backward. Hong Yi couldn't help but be shocked. Yang Wu was actually evenly matched with him. How was this possible? 3 days ago, he had punched this guy in the chest, and this guy's chest was stuck to his back. Haha, aren't you surprised? Yang Wu laughed as he charged towards Hong Yi. The 2 figures moved at high speed in the void, and an intense battle broke out. At this time, the Grand Mist race's old ancestors rushed out. Since when did Yang Wu's cultivation and battle strength rise to such a level? The Grand Mist race's old ancestors' faces turned solemn when they saw Yang Wu fighting with Hong Yi. Since the Yang clan dared to come here, they must have something up their sleeves. At this time, Jiyu Fei was watching the show from afar. The Yang clan's old ancestors' cultivation had improved in the past 3 days, especially Yang Wu. He had improved a lot. Chapter 54-48. The Yang tribe once again attacked the Grand Mist Divine Race's territory. After 3 days of recuperation, the Yang tribe had obtained many benefits from Jiyu Fei's inner world. The Yang tribe's ancestors' cultivation had increased, and their battle strength had recovered to its peak. The current Yang tribe was strong, and their morale was high. Yang Wu stepped out and challenged one of the Grand Mist Divine Race's ancestors, Hong Yi. Bam! Boom! Muffled collisions resounded, and the void shook. Although the Yang world had been destroyed and turned into a huge wasteland drifting in the chaotic void, some laws of heaven and earth still remained. The entire wasteland emitted an invisible force that repelled the chaotic qi in the surroundings. This huge wasteland was originally lifeless, but with the emergence of the divine spring of life, this world of death was filled with vitality. Moreover, this vitality was getting stronger and stronger. In just a short while, the area where the divine spring of life was located was filled with lush vegetation, turning into an oasis full of vitality. Of course, the flowers and trees here were actually brought out by the survivors from their own little worlds. The life energy of the divine spring of life was the most suitable for the growth of all kinds of vegetation. Some of the survivors even brought out birds and beasts. At this time, Jiyu Fei was watching the show from afar. There was no need for him to fight for territory. If the Yang tribe couldn't even deal with the Grand Mist Divine Race, then they were really useless. Loser, since you want to die, I will fulfill your wish. Hong Yi attacked with all his might. The metal element fist force burst forth from his fists. Every single punch he threw out caused the entire void to collapse in a terrifying manner. However, Yang Wu was no longer the Yang Wu from 3 days ago. The current him was brimming with battle intent, and his strange mystique deflected all of Hong Yi's fist force. Haha, you want to kill me? Just you. Yang Wu sneered as he attacked. It seems like only a fierce dragon can cross the river. The other experts who were watching the battle from afar all stared at the 2 Extreme Dao Realm experts. In the past, Extreme Dao Realm experts were considered experts in the Yang world. Now, the Yang world had become a thing of the past. Extreme Dao Realm experts were in high demand now. There were very few survivors right now. Only 5 of the 10 strongest factions in Flame World had managed to escape the calamity of annihilation. Of course, there were also other forces that were lucky enough to survive this calamity. Yang Wu and Hong Yi, these 2 fellows fought until the sky turned dark and the earth turned dark. They were evenly matched. It was not an easy thing for them to determine the victor. How long are we going to fight for? A figure walked out from the Fire Clan's side. He was the Yang clan's patriarch, Yang Hui. He was in existence at the peak of Extreme Dao, and his cultivation was far above Yang Wu and Hong Yi. Bastards of the primordial clan, who wants to come out and fight? Those in the Eternal Realm, there's no need to come out. Yang Hui shouted at the Grand Mist Divine Race's ancestors. Chimph, let me try you. A figure rushed out from the midst of the Grand Mist Divine Race's ancestors. Hongzhen, it's you. Yang Hui was excited when he saw who it was. He had wanted to beat this guy up for a long time. Kill. Yang Hui didn't waste any more words. He directly threw a punch at Hongzhen. The grayish fist energy covered the sky and ground as it headed towards Hong Zhun to destroy him. Yang Hui, you lunatic. Hong Zhun was shocked when he saw Yang Hui attack. He did not even bother to say anything. The two experts started to fight. Subsequently, the Yang clan's ancestors stepped out one after another, and the Grand Mist clan's ancestors also stepped out to fight. In a short time, outside the Grand Mist clan's territory, the Yang clan's ancestors and the Grand Mist clan's ancestors were locked in battle. The Yang clan's ancestor, Yang Huatian, did not participate in the fight. His opponent was the Grand Mist divine race's ancestor, Hong Sheng. Yang Huatian was an expert at the half-step peerless realm, and the Grand Mist divine race's Hong Sheng was also a half-step peerless realm expert. The two of them were facing off in the sky. The experts who were watching the battle nearby were actually paying attention to Yang Huatian and Hong Sheng. After all, the battle between Yang Huatian and Hong Sheng was going to be the deciding battle. The outcome of the battle between Yang Huatian and Hong Sheng would decide who the divine spring of life belonged to. Of course, if Ji Yufei wanted the divine spring of life, no one would be able to stop him. Unless Sacred Lord Shu Tian returned from the Limitless Realm to fight with him. However, Sacred Lord Shu Tian had finally returned to the Limitless Realm. Why would he leave the Limitless Realm again? It was almost impossible for an existence like Sacred Lord Shu Tian to return after leaving the Limitless Realm. After returning to the Limitless Realm, Sacred Lord Shu Tian would never leave the Limitless Realm again. It would be difficult for Ji Yufei to see Sacred Lord Shu Tian again. Hong Sheng, what are you waiting for? Yang Huatian said to Hong Sheng. Yang Huatian, what are you waiting for? Hong Sheng asked. You two old farts, hurry up and fight. Don't waste our time. Suddenly, a voice came from afar, and a demonic figure appeared in front of everyone. Hong Meng Demon's old Mo? Yang Huatian and Hong Sheng were stunned when they saw that person. This was the ancestor of Hong Meng Demons, who was no weaker than them. He was still alive. Hong Sheng, why don't we get rid of this old Mo first, and then fight to the death? Yang Huatian said to Hong Sheng suddenly. That's what I was thinking. Hong Sheng nodded. Hearing this, the demonic shadow's expression immediately changed. These two fellows couldn't be for real, right? Die. Hong Sheng and Yang Huatian roared and attacked the ancestor of Hong Meng Demons, Mo Batian. Are you crazy? Mo Batian was shocked and angry. In the next moment, he retreated. What a joke. These two guys were half-step to the Limitless Realm. How could he be a match for them now that they had joined forces? However, Hong Sheng and Yang Huatian chased after him like a shadow. When the surrounding experts saw this scene, they were dumbfounded. What was going on? Were they messing around? No one had expected that Yang Huatian and Hong Sheng would join forces at this time. These two guys really know how to play. Ji Yufei couldn't help but laugh when he saw this. Mo Batian was a ruthless character, but he had to turn around and escape. For an existence like Mo Batian, if he wanted to escape, no one would be able to stop him. Of course, this was under the premise that Ji Yufei didn't attack. If Ji Yufei attacked, Mo Batian wouldn't be able to escape at all. Mo Batian escaped. Okay, it's our turn now. Yang Huatian said to Hong Sheng. Okay, let's fight. Hong Sheng nodded his head. He was very straightforward as he directly attacked Yang Huatian. Chapter 54-49. The unbounded sword god was practically invincible in this wasteland. If Ji Yufei didn't make a move, these fellows would be able to dominate an area. However, it was a pity that Ji Yufei was here. Therefore, these guys could only be unlucky. However, Ji Yufei did not want to fight with these guys personally. He directly subdued the Yang clan. The Flame Race was one of the 10 strongest factions of the Flame World before it was destroyed. The Flame Race surviving the calamity of the world was largely due to luck. When the Great Tribulation of Heaven and Earth broke out, whether one could survive or not depended on luck. Although the Yang clan survived, apart from the old ancestors of the clan, the rest had become ordinary people. Yang Shi and the others were not even immortals. Of course, although Yang Shi and the others were not immortals, their ancestors were after all world-shaking great figures. They inherited the bloodline of these great figures, so even if they were not immortals, they could still live for hundreds of years. Some members of the Yang clan could even live for thousands of years and become thousand-year-old antiques. However, in the Yang clan, there were very few thousand-year-old antiques. Jiyu Fei could not count on Yang Shi and the others. A group of ordinary people like them could not help Jiyu Fei at all. Of course, Yang Shi and the others had a lot of room for growth. In the future, they would definitely become immortals or even great mediums. However, this needed time. Because no one could become a great medium in an instant. Boom. At this time, on the wasteland, outside the territory of the primordial divine clan, two powerful auras were colliding. The entire void was shaking and countless spatial ripples spread in all directions. Are they finally going to fight? Jiyu Fei, who was hiding in the distant sky and watching the show, muttered to himself. The surrounding spectators were also extremely excited. No matter if it was Yang Huatian or Hong Sheng, they were all peerless experts. Even before the flame world was destroyed, they were almost invincible existences. A battle between experts of this level, no matter when it was, would always be an incomparably sensational event. However, what made people speechless was that Yang Huatian and Hong Sheng were still confronting each other. They had no intention of fighting at all, which made countless spectators very disappointed. Why aren't you fighting yet? How long is this standoff going to last? The spectators nearby were getting impatient from waiting. On the other hand, the battle between the Yang clan and the Grand Mist Divine Race's ancestors was intense, with both sides winning and losing. The two races had fought for countless years, and they were evenly matched. It was difficult for either side to defeat the other. It wasn't easy for the Yang clan to defeat the Grand Mist Divine Race and seize the Divine Spring of Life. Similarly, it wouldn't be easy for the Grand Mist Divine Race to defeat the Yang clan and protect their Divine Spring of Life. Furthermore, the outcome of the other patriarchs would not determine anything. The battle that would determine the ownership of the Divine Spring of Life would be the one between Yang Huatian and Hong Sheng. However, the two of them were not anxious at all. The standoff continued. 6 hours, 12 hours, 24 hours, 2 days, 10 days. The Flame Clan and the Grand Mist Divine Race's ancestors had come to an end, but the two of them were still locked in a standoff. This confrontation could be said to be world-shaking. Then, the Yang Clan and the Grand Mist Divine Race's ancestors fought until both sides suffered. However, the two of them were still locked in a standoff. Even the experts who were watching the battle nearby retreated one after another. They couldn't keep wasting time here. It should be known that everything in the wasteland had been destroyed. Everything needed to be rebuilt. Moreover, the battle for the Divine Spring of Life didn't stop. Originally, only 5 of the 10 strongest factions in the Flame world had survived the calamity. However, there were 9 Divine Springs of Life in the wasteland. The Grand Mist Divine Race occupied 1, the Grand Mist Demons occupied 1, the Yang Clan occupied 1, the Yang Clan occupied 1, the Demon Race occupied 1, and the Grand Mist Human Race occupied 1. The other 5 Divine Springs of Life were occupied by other factions. Apart from the 5 strongest factions, the other factions weren't weak either. Some factions had joined forces to occupy a Divine Spring of Life. What all the factions needed to do now was to occupy the Divine Spring of Life, lay a foundation, and smoothly pass on their legacy. If the Yang clan had chosen to attack the weaker factions, they would have occupied a Divine Spring of Life by now. However, the Yang clan had offended the Grand Mist Divine Race, and they had clashed with the Grand Mist Divine Race. What are you waiting for? Jiyu Fei was getting impatient and sent a voice transmission to Yang Huatian. Yes, Master. Yang Huatian didn't dare to delay. His master was getting impatient. If he continued to stay in a standoff with Hong Sheng, his master would be unhappy. What did you say? Hong Sheng, who was on the other side, couldn't help but be startled. This guy actually had a master? How is that possible? Kill. Yang Huatian took advantage of the moment when Hong Sheng was distracted to make a move. This was an opportunity that an existence like him would definitely not miss. They had been in a standoff for so long. Weren't they waiting for each other to reveal a flaw? Now, Hong Sheng finally revealed a flaw. In fact, Hong Sheng was staring at Yang Huatian. Yang Huatian's sudden words were too shocking. This guy was Yang Huatian, the Yang clan's old ancestor. Although Yang Huatian had only said a single sentence, 3 words, those 3 words were too shocking. The Yang clan's old ancestor actually had a master. Who was qualified to be Yang Huatian's master? Just thinking about it made his scalp tingle. Yang Huatian was a half-step to the peerless power realm. Wouldn't his master be a true peerless power realm expert? Boom! Hong Sheng was sent flying by Yang Huatian's punch. Yang Huatian's attack was like a storm, unstoppable. Hong Sheng had lost the initiative and was being suppressed by Yang Huatian. The old ancestors of the Grand Mist divine race were scared out of their wits. If Hong Sheng was defeated, the divine spring of life would no longer belong to them. At this time, the old ancestors of both the Yang clan and the Grand Mist divine race were either injured or crippled. Both camps had lost old ancestors. The area outside the Grand Mist divine race's defensive array was a mess. The destruction caused by this level of fighting was really shocking. Of course, this was the wasteland, so nothing had been destroyed by these guys. They finally started fighting. Some people who were still watching the fight were surprised and happy. This was a fight between half-step to the peerless power realm experts. Powerful essence chi rippled in all directions. Countless experts were immediately alarmed. Chapter 5450. A great battle between half-step infinite powers broke out in the wasteland. This was the strongest battle since the wasteland's revival. Both Yang Huatian and Hong Sheng represented the strongest combat power in the wasteland. Apart from Jiyu Fei, there was no other infinite prime in the wastelands for now. Of course, no one knew if there were other infinite powers in the wasteland. Even Jiyu Fei did not dare to say that there were no such existences in the wasteland. One had to know that before he met Sacred Lord Void Sky, Jiyu Fei didn't even dream that the legendary Sacred Lord Void Sky was actually an old man who had plotted against him. Jiyu Fei was furious when he thought about how Sacred Lord Shu Tian had plotted against him and used him to enter the Infinite Realm. He had to find a way to enter the Infinite Realm and find Sacred Lord Shu Tian to take revenge. If he did not take revenge, he would be traumatized for the rest of his life, which would affect his cultivation. Therefore, Sacred Lord Shu Tian had to die, and he had to kill her. At that moment, the sky was dark. Hundreds of millions of miles away, the chaotic air was vast and mighty. It was the chaotic void. 2 figures were moving quickly in the void. Dull sounds of collisions were constantly heard, and powerful waves of vital chi spread in all directions. Even the chaotic air hundreds of millions of miles away was violently shaken by the impact. This was the terror of a half-step infinite powers expert. Even in the wasteland, the destructive power of such an existence was shocking. Of course, both Yang Huatian and Hong Sheng were trash in front of Jiyu Fei. It would be as easy as flipping his hand for him to kill them. Everyone was paying attention to this battle, as it would decide who the divine spring of life belonged to. That was the divine spring of life, which was something that countless people would go crazy for. A single divine spring of life was enough for a force to pass on for countless years. As long as there were no accidents, the forces that possessed the divine spring of life would have many experts. They would never lack experts. This was because the divine spring of life could create countless experts. This was also why so many people were desperate to get their hands on the divine spring of life. Go down. Yang Huatian roared and used his trump card. A huge flaming hand appeared in the void and slapped Hong Sheng down from the sky. Boom! With a loud bang, a huge palm print appeared on the incomparably hard ground, causing dust to fill the air. The earth undulated like waves. Roar! A furious roar came from the ground, and a powerful force exploded. The palm print on the ground exploded, and a figure rushed out from the ground. However, at that moment, a vine rushed out of the ground and wrapped itself around Hong Sheng. What? Jiyu Fei's eyes suddenly lit up as he watched the battle from afar. Even someone as strong as Hong Sheng couldn't avoid the vine that had rushed out of the ground. He was immediately entangled by the vine and pulled into the ground. Old ancestor, the members of the Grand Mist divine race turned pale with fright when they saw this. If something were to happen to Hong Sheng, the entire primordial divine tribe would be finished. This would be a devastating blow to the primordial divine tribe. The Grand Mist divine race couldn't afford to lose Hongsheng. This was because Hongsheng was the only existence in the Chaos divine race who was a half-step to the infinite prime realm. Hongsheng panicked. He slashed at the vine door with his hand, and a sharp light blade rushed out of his hand. This hand blade was more powerful than a real divine weapon. However, when Hongsheng's hand blade slashed at the vine door, it didn't even break the skin of the vine. How is this possible? Hongsheng's shock was no small matter. An infinite prime realm creature? Ji Yufei muttered to himself. He hadn't expected such a powerful creature to suddenly appear. This guy seemed to be hiding underground. Could it be that the battle between Yang Huatian and Hongsheng had alerted this guy? Just as Hongsheng was about to be pulled into the ground by the vines, a beam of divine light flashed from afar. The cold light flashed past the vines, and the vines fell immediately. Master, why? Yang Huatian looked in the direction where Ji Yufei was, puzzled. Among everyone present, only Ji Yufei could save Hongsheng. Therefore, the person who had saved Hongsheng had to be Ji Yufei. Swoosh! The vine that had been cut by the cold light broke through the ground and burrowed into the ground. The broken vine also retracted into the ground. Hongsheng was pleasantly surprised that his life had been spared. You want to leave? Ji Yufei descended from the sky, broke through the ground, and entered the ground. He felt an aura rushing into the depths of the ground, and it disappeared in an instant. So fast. Ji Yufei didn't dare to delay. He broke through the layers of the ground and chased after it. When the flame world was destroyed, it didn't explode into dust. Instead, the entire world shrank into a ball and turned into a huge wasteland. The ground of the wasteland was extremely hard. The deeper one went, the harder the ground became. It was even harder than divine iron. However, this didn't stop Ji Yufei. Ji Yufei went straight into the depths of the ground. After passing through a layer of extremely hard ground, Ji Yufei actually entered a huge space. This space was actually a small world full of vitality. In the center of this small world, there was an incomparably huge divine tree. This divine tree was even emitting a faint divine light. An extreme Tao-level aura spread out from this divine tree. Tree demon? Ji Yufei was a little surprised. You are the demon. Your whole family are demons. A wave of divine consciousness spread from the divine tree, and a voice sounded in Ji Yufei's mind. He, if you aren't a demon, then who are you? Ji Yufei crossed his arms and looked indifferently at the towering divine tree in front of him. This divine tree supported the entire small world. What made Ji Yufei feel strange was that with the divine tree's cultivation, how could it only create such a small world? There seemed to be a problem. Ji Yufei couldn't help but keep an eye on it. I am the Sector Lord of Flame World. The divine tree said arrogantly. Sector Lord? Ji Yufei couldn't help but be shocked when he heard that. This fellow was actually a world overlord. How was that possible? You are the world's will born in Flame World. Ji Yufei said with a serious expression. If a world's will was born, it was definitely not a good thing. Because then, if this world's will wanted to destroy the world, everyone would be finished. Could it be? Ji Yufei thought of a possibility and couldn't help but sweat. You aren't too stupid. The divine tree's divine consciousness said. This world has gathered the power of the entire flame world, Ji Yufei suddenly said. Haha, now you know. Here, I, the Sector Lord, is invincible. The divine tree laughed. Invincible? Are you joking? Ji Yufei sneered. But he definitely wouldn't underestimate this guy. The power of the entire flame world. That was definitely an extremely powerful force. If he could obtain this power, he might be able to break the world wall of limitless realm. Chapter 54-51. Ji Yufei had been plotted against by Sacred Master Shu Tian, and his body and soul had almost been destroyed. To Ji Yufei, this was a lesson learned. He had to be much more careful now. Even at his level of cultivation, he would still feel the threat of death. Not to mention Yang Huatian and Hongsheng, who were half-step to the infinity realm. Immortality and immortality were relative. However, Ji Yufei did not expect that the flame world had already given birth to a will of the heavens. Moreover, this will of the heavens had condensed the power of the entire flame world. This power was too strong. This was the full power of a super-large world. Once it exploded, it might really be able to break the boundary wall of the infinity realm. Sensing the terrifying power fluctuations in this small world deep underground, he could not help but be tempted. This might be his only chance to enter the infinity realm. Entering the limitless realm was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. However, leaving the limitless realm wasn't difficult at all. However, since ancient times, there weren't many living beings that left the limitless realm willingly. It should be known that the infinity realm was a world without birth, old age, sickness, and death. Here, even a blade of grass could live for a long time. Of course, even in the limitless realm, immortality was a relative concept. Wherever there were creatures, there would be fights. Once a fight broke out, injuries and deaths were inevitable. I am the invincible ruler here. A strand of divine will spread from the tree of God. There seemed to be only one creature in the entire small world, and that was the towering tree of God that stood in the center of this small world. Here, the tree of God's tentacles extended to every inch of the void. Is that so? Then show me what you are capable of. Ji Yufei said calmly. Encountering such a powerful creature, he was naturally itching to challenge it. Swoosh. As soon as Ji Yufei finished speaking, a vine immediately broke through the air and pierced through his forehead at an extremely fast speed. Hey! When Ji Yufei wanted to dodge, he suddenly found that he could not move. He had actually been imprisoned by a powerful force. Roar! Ji Yufei bellowed. A powerful wave of Yuan Qi erupted from his body. He wanted to break free from the energy that was imprisoning him. However, it was useless. He still couldn't move. The vine pierced through the space between his eyebrows. However, the tip of the vine exploded as if it had pierced a piece of immortal divine steel. What? The divine tree was taken aback. You dare say you're invincible in front of me? Are you kidding me? Ji Yufei said disdainfully. Who are you? There is no one like you in the flame world. The realm lord of the flame world said angrily. Flame world isn't the only world in this world. Ji Yufei said disapprovingly. Could it be that you came from that world? The flame realm divine tree suddenly exclaimed. Are you talking about the limitless realm? An idea flashed through Ji Yufei's mind. The flame realm divine tree was shocked. That world was a supreme world. It couldn't even break through the world walls. It couldn't enter that world. The world intent of the flame world had gathered the power of the entire flame world to enter that world. However, the flame world divine tree was still here after the destruction of the flame world. What? You also want to enter the legendary supreme world where there is no life and death? Ji Yufei said coolly. How do you know of the existence of the limitless realm? The flame realm divine tree said urgently. TCH, why don't I know? Do you know an old guy called Sacred Lord Void Sky? Ji Yufei asked. Sacred Lord Void Sky? You've seen Sacred Lord Void Sky? The flame realm divine tree was shocked again. As expected, Ji Yufei understood. Sacred Lord Void Sky had once discovered the flame world and seen the flame realm divine tree. He faintly guessed that the destruction of the flame world was related to Sacred Lord Void Sky. Where is that bastard? The flame realm divine tree suddenly became excited. What, were you tricked by him? Ji Yufei was happy. It seemed that there was an enemy of Sacred Lord Void Sky here. If it wasn't for him, would I have been trapped here? The flame realm divine tree said angrily. So that's how it is. Ji Yufei was even happier. Don't misunderstand. I also have a grudge with that Sacred Lord Void Sky. That old guy is truly despicable. Ji Yufei sighed. You also have a grudge with that guy? The flame realm divine tree's anger subsided when it heard this. The powerful force that had restrained Ji Yufei disappeared, and Ji Yufei could move again. I was almost killed by that guy. Killing intent immediately exploded from Ji Yufei's body when he thought about how badly he had been tricked by Sacred Lord Void Sky. Where is that bastard? The flame realm divine tree asked. The limitless realm. Ji Fei said through gritted teeth. What? The Flame Realm Divine Tree was stunned when it heard this. Since that guy had entered the Limitless Realm, they wouldn't be able to take revenge. The Limitless Realm. Who could break through the barrier of the Limitless Realm and enter it? The reason why the Flame Realm Divine Tree knew of the existence of the Limitless Realm was because of Sacred Lord Void Sky. Sacred Lord Void Sky had tricked the Flame Realm Divine Tree into breaking through the barrier with him, but the barrier of the Limitless Realm was just too strong. Even two infinite primes working together couldn't break through it. In the end, they even lost the entire Flame World. Of course, at the best moment, the Flame Realm Divine Tree saw through Sacred Lord Void Sky's scheme and fought with that guy. In the end, it was forced to seal itself in the core of the Flame World. After that, the entire Flame World was destroyed. Looks like I won't be able to take revenge. The Flame Realm Divine Tree sighed. Who said that? Ji Fei said disapprovingly. TSK, it's not that I'm looking down on you, but with your cultivation, you won't be able to move the barrier of the Limitless Realm at all. The Flame Realm Divine Tree snickered coldly. If we work together, we might have a chance. Ji Fei said with a solemn expression. How do we work together? The Flame Realm Divine Tree had been tricked by Sacred Lord Void Sky. At a time like this, it wouldn't believe Ji Fei so easily. Lend me your power. Ji Fei said directly. What did you say? Hearing this, the Flame Realm Divine Tree was both shocked and angry. This guy wanted to borrow its power? If this guy was someone like Sacred Lord Void Sky, then it would be dead. If it lent its power to this guy and this guy didn't return it, then it would be extremely easy for this guy to kill it. We can make a contract. We'll share life and death. How about it? Ji Fei could tell what this guy was worried about, but if he wanted to take revenge on Sacred Lord Void Sky, the Flame Realm Divine Tree was his only chance. Share life and death. Chapter 54-52. Sharing life and death. That's possible. In the small world deep under the wasteland, the Flame World Divine Tree was finally moved. It had to be moved. If it could share life and death with this guy, then all its worries would be gone. It could then work together with this guy called Ji Fei to break through the boundary wall of the Limitless Realm. They might really be able to break through the boundary wall of the Limitless Realm. How do we share life and death? The Flame Realm Divine Tree asked anxiously. Soul contract. Ji Fei said indifferently. Soul contract. The Flame Realm Divine Tree was shocked. He had done something to its soul. Okay, what do we need to do? The Flame Realm Divine Tree asked. Ji Fei didn't hesitate and pointed at the Flame Realm Divine Tree. In the next moment, a ball of divine light flew out from his fingertip. This ball of divine light entered the Flame Realm Divine Tree. I see. The Flame Realm Divine Tree understood. It was a life and death technique. This technique could connect the divine souls of two living beings to achieve the goal of sharing life and death. If one's divine soul was destroyed, the other's divine soul would also be unlucky. Life and death technique was no joke. Then what are we waiting for? Come. The Flame Realm Divine Tree had great cultivation and foresight. When it obtained this technique, it knew that it was real and could achieve the effect of sharing life and death. At this moment, the spirit chi in the entire world surged. A ray of divine soul light rushed out from the Flame Realm Divine Tree and turned into many seals. Ji Fei didn't stay idle either. He also formed seals. The two spiritual Dao seals collided with each other. In the next moment, the two Dao seals fused together and emitted boundless divine light, illuminating the entire small world. Rumble, the entire world shook. Then, the entire wasteland shook. All the forces on the wasteland were shocked to the extreme. What's happening now? All the forces were shocked and panicked. They thought that another calamity was about to happen. However, the shaking only lasted for a short while before it calmed down. The forces on the wasteland also heaved a sigh of relief. They all guarded their divine spring of life, waiting for the wasteland to recover. Although the wastelands had recovered, it would take an extremely long time for a complete great world to be born again. These people could wait, but Ji Fei and the Flame Realm God Tree could not. They had all been screwed over by Sacred Lord Void Sky, and they were in a rush to find her for revenge. What happened to Master? A large hall was built where the flame race was stationed. At this moment, the Yang clan's ancestors were gathered in the palace hall. The first ancestor, Yang Huatian, sat on the throne in the middle of the hall. Jiyu Fei had already been in the ground for more than half a year, and still had not come out. This made the Yang clan's ancestors feel very uneasy, because the current situation was very unfavorable for the Yang clan. Previously, the Yang clan had challenged the Grand Mist Divine Race to snatch the Grand Mist Divine Race's divine spring of life. The Yang clan and the Grand Mist Divine Race wouldn't rest until one of them was dead. In the end, the Yang clan had failed to break into the Grand Mist Divine Race's encampment, and they could only retreat. As the Grand Mist Divine Race controlled the divine spring of life, the ancestors' cultivation had increased by a lot in the past half a year. However, the members of the Yang race did not have the life force of the divine spring of life to cultivate. Not only did their cultivation base not increase, but it also showed signs of declining. The reason for that was because the spiritual energy of the world in the wasteland was too thin. It was so thin that it could be neglected. In the wasteland, only the area where the divine spring of life was located had rich heaven and earth spiritual energy. Ancestor, if Master doesn't appear, we will be in big trouble. Yang Hui of the Yang clan was very worried. Recently, the Grand Mist Divine Race seemed to have made a move against them. The Grand Mist Divine Race was going to make a move against them. In the vicinity of the Yang clan's encampment, some unfamiliar faces started to appear. What are you afraid of? Do you think they will dare to make a move against us? Yang Huatian sneered. Even though Jiyu Fei had only appeared briefly, the battle strength he had displayed was enough to suppress the Grand Mist Divine Race's #1 ancestor, Hong Sheng. Moreover, if it weren't for Jiyu Fei, the #1 ancestor of the Grand Mist Divine Race, Hong Sheng, would have been dragged into the ground by the terrifying lifeform. Their master was Jiyu Fei, a supreme existence in the infinite prime realm. In the wasteland, an infinite prime was an invincible existence. Sigh, I'm afraid that we will be annihilated by the Grand Mist Divine Race before Master comes out. Yang Hui sighed. The other ancestors of the Yang clan were speechless when they heard Yang Hui's words. It wasn't impossible. While the Yang clan was in danger, Jiyu Fei and the Flame World Divine Tree were also in danger. After Jiyu Fei and the Flame World Divine Tree had completed their life and death bond, he had to help the Flame World Divine Tree escape. However, it wasn't an easy task for the Flame World Divine Tree to escape. The Flame World Divine Tree was trapped in the wasteland. The power of the entire Flame World was gathered here. The Flame World Divine Race would only be able to escape after successfully absorbing this power. However, how could it be so easy to refine the power of the entire world? However, this power was the power of the Flame World Divine Tree. In this case, it would be relatively easier for them to refine this power. Rumble, the entire pocket world shook again as a huge energy ball appeared in the middle of the pocket world. An unimaginably terrifying power rippled out from the energy ball. Even though this small world had been sealed, this power still affected the entire wasteland. Just as the pocket world shook, the wasteland shook again. This time, the wasteland shook violently as huge clouds of dust rose from various parts of the wasteland. It was as though doomsday had arrived. Even the divine spring of life was affected. What happened? The various superpowers in the wasteland were shocked once again. The Grand Mist Divine Race originally wanted to attack the Yang clan. However, they had no choice but to stop because Hong Sheng had been frightened by the terrifying lifeform underground. Yang Huatian's master's combat strength was too terrifying. The wasteland's shaking was definitely related to Yang Huatian's master. Yang Huatian's master was still alive. The wasteland shook again, and Hong Sheng naturally didn't dare to attack the Yang clan. Once Yang Huatian's master returned, the Grand Mist Divine Race would probably be buried along with the Yang clan. Hong Sheng really didn't want to take the risk. Hong Sheng didn't want the Grand Mist Divine Race to be annihilated. If Yang Huatian's master wanted to annihilate the Grand Mist Divine Race, it would be a piece of cake. At this time, Jiyu Fei and the Flame World Divine Tree were fighting with all their might in front of the energy ball in the pocket world. Countless Tao patterns rushed out of their bodies and imprinted themselves on the energy ball. The energy waves that erupted from the energy ball were getting stronger. The wasteland was also shaking more violently. Chapter 54-53. In the little world in the depths of the wasteland, Gu Fei and the Flame Realm God Tree worked together to refine the power of the universe in the little world. This power of the universe was the power of the entire flame world that Sacred Lord Void Sky had sealed here. Sacred Lord Void Sky had wanted to use this power to break open the realm wall of the everlasting realm. Sacred Lord Void Sky had schemed for countless years and used the power of the entire flame world and all the living beings of the flame world to break open the realm wall of the everlasting realm. After doing all this, he had wanted to act immediately, but who would have thought that the situation would change beyond his expectations? He actually didn't have the chance to use this power. This was because he had used Gu Fei's power to successfully break open the realm wall of the everlasting realm. However, this method could not be used again because Gu Fei's power alone wouldn't be able to break open the realm wall of the everlasting realm no matter how strong his cultivation was. Sacred Lord Void Sky didn't even dream that Gu Fei would find the wasteland and then discover the backup he had left behind. Although this Sacred Lord Void Sky had tricked Gu Fei badly, he had finally done a good deed and left behind this power for Gu Fei. With the help of the Flame Realm God Tree, breaking open the realm wall of the everlasting realm didn't seem impossible anymore. At this time, the realm ball floating in the little world was covered in Tao patterns. Tao patterns also appeared inside the realm ball. Those were the great Tao imprints that Sacred Lord Void Sky had left behind. Sacred Lord Void Sky's great Tao imprints were fighting against the power of Gu Fei and the Flame Realm God Tree. The power of Gu Fei and the Flame Realm God Tree kept cancelling out Sacred Lord Void Sky's power. The power of Gu Fei and the Flame Realm God Tree was endless, but the power of Sacred Lord Void Sky's great Tao imprints could not be replenished. This way, the great Tao imprints that Sacred Lord Void Sky had left behind would be destroyed by Gu Fei and the Flame Realm God Tree sooner or later. Boom boom boom. The entire little world was shaking. Endless great Tao power was surging. The entire little world became very unstable. Countless cracks appeared in the void as though it could collapse at any time. Can you do it? Gu Fei said to the faint figure next to him. You dare to say I can't? This faint and illusory figure was a clone of the Fire Realm Divine Tree. The main body of the Fire Realm Divine Tree was still suppressing this small world. If it wasn't for the main body of the Flame World Divine Tree suppressing this small world would have collapsed long ago. However, even if it was the incarnation of the Flame Realm Divine Tree, it could only unleash 70 to 80% of its power in this world. This was because this small world was created by the Flame World Divine Tree. In this place, the Flame World Divine Tree was the master. Of course, the little world of the Fire Realm God Tree had been tampered with by Saint Void Sky. If the Fire Realm God Tree really wanted to take back control of the little world, it would first have to deal with the great Tao imprint that Sacred Lord Void Sky had left behind. World in. Countless Tao patterns charged of the world of realm God rushed out and rushed of the realm world. Of rushed shot. Tao pattern after Tao pattern entered the realm pearl, and the great Tao imprint that Sacred Lord Void Sky had left behind was suppressed. Sacred Lord Void Sky's Tao imprint turned into a towering figure. This figure was very domineering and looked down on the world. This guy, Gu Fei, was surprised to see this figure. This incarnation of Sacred Lord Void Sky was very powerful. It was like a different person from the Sacred Lord Void Sky that Gu Fei had seen before. Sacred Lord Void Sky's old man is so cool. Gu Fei was dumbfounded. Kill. Seeing Sacred Lord Void Sky's Tao imprint appear, Gu Fei was furious. His eyes turned red. He didn't hold back anymore and used the Sky Ascension secret technique. Boom. An unprecedentedly strong wave of essence chi exploded from Gu Fei's body. The next moment, a light mark appeared between his eyebrows. Swoosh. A ray of divine light rushed out from between Gu Fei's eyebrows and turned into a sword shadow. It instantly pierced through the ball of light and the shadow of Sacred Lord Void Sky. Roar. Sacred Lord Void Sky's shadow roared. The next moment, this figure disappeared in the void. The Tao imprint that Sacred Lord Void Sky had left in the Realm World bead was rapidly weakening. In just a few seconds, Sacred Lord Void Sky's Tao imprint was completely destroyed. Why didn't you use this move earlier? The incarnation of the Blazing Realm Divine Tree said angrily to Ji Fei. TSK, this is my trump card. Do you think I will use my trump card so easily? Ji Fei said disapprovingly. The Blazing Realm Divine Tree was speechless. However, the Blazing Realm Divine Tree didn't have time to settle the score with Ji Fei. It had to collect the Realm World bead first. Only after collecting the Realm World bead could the Blazing Realm Divine Tree completely control this small world and become the master of this small world again. Swoosh! The incarnation of the Blazing Realm Divine Tree disappeared immediately. The body of the Blazing Realm Divine Tree was changing rapidly. Endless divine light shone from the Blazing Realm Divine Tree. In the next moment, the towering Blazing Realm Divine Tree disappeared in the divine light. Then, a figure walked out of the divine light. A woman. Ji Fei couldn't help but widen his eyes when he saw the figure. The figure that walked out of the endless divine light was actually a beautiful woman in white. This woman was different from all the women he had seen before. This was the most beautiful woman that Ji Fei had ever seen. She was absolutely extraordinary. Even someone like him, who had cultivated for countless years and could be considered an antique, was stunned when he saw this woman. I actually shared a life and death fate with this peerless female demon. I thought we were brothers. Who would have thought that we wouldn't be brothers anymore? Could it be that I have to become brother and sister with this fellow? I don't want to. Ji Fei was depressed. Why are you staring at me? I will be shy. The woman in white leisurely walked over and smiled sweetly at Ji Fei. Ji Fei only felt that his eyes lit up. He was a little dazed. You're a woman? Ji Fei sighed. Why? You don't like me because I'm a woman? The woman in white smiled. I like it. Why wouldn't I like it? Ji Fei suddenly smiled. Isn't that enough? The woman in white was very proud. She waved her right hand, and the realm pearl that was floating in the air immediately flew back to her. She grabbed it in her hand. As soon as the realm pearl was in her hand, an unprecedentedly powerful aura erupted from the woman in white. The entire shaking small world instantly calmed down. With the realm pearl in hand, the world is mine. The woman in white's aura was unprecedentedly powerful. In the outside world, the wasteland that seemed like it was the end of the world had also calmed down. The 9 divine springs of life were still growing, and the wasteland's spirit chi was gradually recovering. However, the wasteland's spirit chi recovery process was very slow. All the forces on the wasteland were recuperating. Chapter 54-54. The atmosphere in the wasteland was tense because the 9 great divine springs were something everyone coveted. Especially the forces that had obtained the divine springs, they were on guard day and night, afraid that other forces would come to snatch the divine springs of life. On the other hand, the Yang clan and Grand Mist clan were at each other's throats. However, the Yang clan was leading a bitter life, whereas the Grand Mist clan was guarding the divine spring of life. The Grand Mist clan's ancestors' cultivation rose with each passing day. As time went by, the Grand Mist race's strength increased greatly, while the Flame race's strength weakened. However, the Grand Mist race was wary of the peerless expert behind the Flame race, so they didn't dare to make a move against the Flame race. However, Ji Fei hadn't appeared for a long time, which triggered the Grand Mist race's killing intent towards the Flame race. Time passed, and several years passed in the blink of an eye. The vitality in the wasteland grew stronger, and the area where the 9 great divine springs of life was located turned into a huge oasis. The survivors on the wasteland built a city around the heavenly spring of life. The Grand Mist race also built a Grand Mist divine city, and the city was bustling with activity. Of course, the people in the city were all from the Grand Mist race. The Grand Mist race had a huge population, numbering in the tens of thousands. The fact that so many of the Grand Mist race's clansmen survived proved that the Grand Mist race's ancestors were quite capable. In the past few years, 9 giant cities had appeared in the wasteland. With these 9 giant cities as the center, countless human settlements appeared. The human race thrived. Other than the human race, there were also the monster race, demons, and ghost race. These powerful races also thrived in the wasteland. However, the human race's speed of reproduction was much faster than the other races. Perhaps this was the human race's advantage. However, the monster race, demons, and ghost race's talents and physiques were much stronger than the human races. In the past few years, Gu Fei and the Flame World Divine Tree had not appeared. They had left the wasteland and arrived in front of the Limitless Realm's boundary wall. This was the Chaos Void, and time did not exist. They didn't know how long they had been here. Boom. Bam. Dull bangs resounded, and the entire Chaos Void shook. It still doesn't work. Again, another failure. How exactly can we break through the boundary wall? Gu Fei and the Flame Realm Divine Tree were extremely depressed. They used all sorts of methods, but without exception, all of them failed. There was no other way. This Limitless Realm's realm wall was simply too powerful. Even Gu Fei and the Flame World Divine Tree were unable to break through the boundary wall. Even if it was a small hole the size of a pinhole, they would have been able to do it. However, they could not even break a hair-thin hole. What if I use my ultimate power? Gu Fei suggested. In the primal chaos, the Flame Realm Divine Tree was a peerless beauty. At this time, her name was Yang Wu. No. Yang Wu immediately refused. If I don't use my ultimate power, how can I break through the realm barrier of the Limitless Realm? Gu Fei said gloomily. No means no. Yang Wu remained unmoved. Sigh. Gu Fei let out a sigh and no longer said anything. If they used their ultimate power, they might have a chance to break through the realm barrier of the Limitless Realm. However, if they didn't use their ultimate power, they definitely wouldn't be able to break through the realm barrier. They had already tried countless times, and there was only one result: failure. Let's go back to the wasteland and take a look. Saying this, Gu Fei disappeared into the primal chaos. Yang Wu thought for a moment, and also took a step forward, disappearing into the primal chaos. This is, when Gu Fei appeared in the wasteland, he was shocked by the scene in front of him. The enormous sphere in front of him was verdant and full of life. This sphere was the wasteland of the past. When the Flame World's great world was destroyed, it had shrunk and destroyed everything, turning into a planet that looked like a wasteland. This sphere could be called the Flame Star. The Flame Star was controlled by the 9 super forces. Each of the 9 super forces controlled a divine spring of life. Gu Fei and the Flame World Divine Tree Yang Wu were in the primal chaos. There was no time or space there. They seemed to only be there for a while, but on the wasteland, 1,000 years had passed. 1,000 years have passed on the wasteland. Gu Fei couldn't help but frown after reading the memories of an extreme Dao realm Great Yao. To him, time was the most worthless thing. If there were no accidents, his lifespan was endless. In other words, if he could find a place to hide, he could live forever without worrying about dying. Gu Fei appeared on a mountain ridge. A giant city stood on the horizon in front of him. A powerful wave of life spread in all directions with the giant city as the center. Around the huge city were countless small towns and villages inhabited by the human race. The primordial chaos race's territory? Gu Fei looked at the giant city in the distance with a grave expression. He could feel an incredibly powerful presence hidden in the giant city. It was a half-step infinite realm existence. Swoosh. Gu Fei took a step forward and disappeared from the mountain peak. When he reappeared, he was already in front of the city gates. Who goes there? The moment Gu Fei appeared, a loud shout came from the top of the city gates. A middle-aged general in purple gold armor walked out. Gu Fei didn't say a word. He just waved his right hand. Boom. With a loud bang, the thick and heavy city gate was blasted open. Behind the city gate, miserable screams could be heard. The soldiers guarding the city gate were all shot by the broken pieces of the gate, and were shot full of holes. They couldn't be any more dead than they were. What? Enemy attack. The middle-aged general was shocked when he saw this. He roared angrily, and his voice reverberated throughout the entire Hongmeng Divine City. The primordial chaos battle soldiers weren't ordinary soldiers. Each of them was an immortal-level existence, but they were all dead. Gu Fei casually broke open the city gate and walked into the city step by step. Groups of primordial chaos race soldiers rushed out from all over the city and headed for the city gates. Gu Fei, who had just entered the city, was quickly surrounded by countless battle soldiers. Powerful figures appeared in the sky one after another, looking down at Gu Fei from above. Their expressions were like that of a dragon looking down at an ant on the ground. "Who the hell are you?" One of the primordial chaos race's ancestors roared at Gu Fei. After 1,000 years of recuperation, the primordial chaos race's strength had greatly increased, and their territory had expanded several times. There were more than 100,000 primordial chaos battle soldiers stationed in the Hongmeng Divine City. The person overseeing the Hongmeng Divine City was the primordial chaos race's #1 ancestor, Hong Sheng. Chapter 54-55. By the time Gu Fei and the Flame Realm Divine Tree returned, 1,000 years had passed in the wasteland. During this time, the wasteland had undergone tremendous changes. After being nourished by the 9 divine springs of life for 1,000 years, the flame star was brimming with vitality. It was completely different from the desolate wasteland it had been 1,000 years ago. The area where the 9 divine springs of life were located was filled with spiritual energy. It was the cultivation holy land for all living beings on the flame star. However, only those from the major forces could enter such a place. Ordinary people couldn't even see the 9 divine springs of life. Even the disciples of the major forces on the flame star couldn't see them easily. There were even fewer people who could use the divine springs of life to cultivate. Only the ancestors of the major forces were qualified to use the divine springs of life to cultivate. Each of the 9 divine springs of life was built into a huge city. The reason why the cities were built was to protect the divine springs of life. Moreover, these cities were also the ancestral lands of the 9 major forces. On the Flame Star, the 9 major forces used these cities as their ancestral lands to continue their inheritance. The Flame Star was truly the birthplace of their ancestors. Of course, even though the Flame Star was huge, there were still many places on it that were desolate. Some places were filled with endless death chi. It was a terrifying land of death. Even half-step Infinity Realm experts wouldn't dare to set foot in those places. At this time, Gu Fei waved his hand and broke open the gates of the Hongmeng Divine City. He strode in with large strides. As soon as Gu Fei barged into the Grand Mist Divine City, he alerted the Grand Mist Divine Race's ancestor Hongzhen. "Who are you? Why did you break into the city?" Hongzhen glared at Gu Fei and asked in a stern voice. "Shut up." Gu Fei waved his right hand. In the next second, Hongzhen let out a miserable shriek and was sent flying out of the sky. The other ancestors of the Grand Mist Divine Race who had just rushed over widened their eyes in disbelief. Hongzhen was an extreme Dao realm ancestor of the Grand Mist Divine Race. Yet, with a wave of his hand, he was sent flying to God knows where. This person's cultivation was at least at the Eternal Realm, or even half-step Infinity Realm. "Who are you?" An old man stepped forward. At this time, several powerful figures appeared in the sky. There were actually 5 Grand Mist Divine Race's ancestors that had appeared in one go. The 5 ancestors of the Grand Mist Divine clans appeared in the sky at the same time, and every single one of them emitted a powerful aura. Countless Grand Mist Divine clans in the city were terrified. What happened? 5 great ancestors appearing at the same time. This is something that has never happened in our clan for hundreds of years. The members of the Grand Mist Divine Race in the city were dumbfounded. The 5 ancestors in the sky were existences that they had to look up to. Normally, they wouldn't even be able to see their ancestors. At this moment, the entire city was in an uproar. Soon, everyone knew that someone had broken through the city gates. The commotion caused by Gu Fei breaking through the city gate was too great. Someone had actually come knocking on their door. This was something that had never happened in hundreds of years. Over the past hundreds of years, the conflicts on the Flame Star had gradually died down. Hundreds of years ago, in the war between the Grand Mist Divine Race and the Fire Clan had suffered a crushing defeat and had no choice but to retreat to a forbidden land on the Flame Star. In the past hundreds of years, the Fire Clan had disappeared from the Flame Star. "Come over here." Ji Fei reached out his right hand and grabbed at the old man in the sky. The old man immediately felt his body tighten, as if he had been grabbed by an invisible hand. Then, his body flew towards Ji Fei involuntarily. "Its ancestor Hongshan, this," someone exclaimed. The Grand Mist Divine Race's ancestor Hongshan struggled desperately as he flew towards Ji Fei. In the end, Ji Fei's hand landed on his forehead. Ji Fei couldn't be bothered to ask any more questions, and he directly searched Hongshan ancestors' memories. "The Fire Clan was expelled by you?" Ji Fei's face turned ugly. No matter what, the Fire Clan was his subordinate, but they were defeated by the Grand Mist Divine Race and banished to a place called the Nether Sea. The Nether Sea was a land of death that gathered the densest death chi on the Flame Star. No living being dared to approach the Nether Sea, let alone enter it. The black water of the Nether Sea was extremely corrosive. Even an extreme-grade divine ancestor would be reduced to a pile of bones if he fell into the Nether Sea. The Nether Sea had appeared at the same time as the 9 divine springs of life. When it appeared, a terrifying death chi filled the air. There were islands of various sizes scattered in the Nether Sea, but strangely, some of them had the aura of life. It was a miracle that the Fire Clan could give birth to life after death. The Fire Clan had risked their lives to retreat into the Nether Sea to avoid the Grand Mist Divine Race's pursuit. After Ji Fei learned of everything, he was truly enraged. No matter how trashy the Fire Clan was, they were still his subordinates. How could he allow his subordinates to be bullied by others? At this time, Hongshan, the Grand Mist Divine Race's old ancestor, who was in Ji Fei's hand, was terrified. He realized that he didn't even have the strength to resist in front of this person. He was an Eternal Realm expert. Hongshan, who was in the Eternal Realm, was caught in Ji Fei's hand like a little chick. The scene was witnessed by countless Grand Mist Divine Race clansmen in the city. Their eyeballs nearly fell to the ground. Everyone was indescribably shocked. Old Ancestor Hongshan, the Grand Mist Divine Race clansman from Old Ancestor Hongshan's bloodline, couldn't accept the fact that their old ancestor, who was like a supreme ruler in their hearts, was caught in someone's hand. "How dare you humiliate my clan's old ancestor? Go to hell!" An extreme Dao Realm Grand Mist Divine Race expert leaped into the sky with a spear in his hand and charged at Ji Fei. "You're crazy. Back off." The other old ancestors in the sky were shocked when they saw this scene. They hadn't even made a move, but this brat who had just broken through to the extreme Dao Realm was already in a hurry to attack. This was simply courting death. Scram! Ji Fei waved his left hand, and the extreme Dao Realm Grand Mist Divine Race expert who was charging at him flew out with a whoosh, disappearing from sight. "They're just a bunch of ants," Ji Fei said nonchalantly. Everyone was taken aback once again. The battle prowess displayed by this person was simply too strong. Whether it was an extreme Dao Realm expert or an Eternal Realm expert, they were as weak as ants in front of this person. "Who the hell are you?" An old voice sounded from the city. Chapter 54-56. In the Grand Mist Divine City, Ji Fei was domineering. He had intimidated the so-called ancestors of the Grand Mist Divine Clan with his strength alone. The ancestors of the Grand Mist Divine Race weren't weaklings. Otherwise, the Grand Mist Divine Race wouldn't have been able to guard the Divine Spring of Life. There were only 9 Divine Springs of Life on the entire Flame Planet. The Flame Planet didn't just have 9 superpowers. The current situation on the Flame Planet was a little complicated. Out of the original 10 superpowers of the Flame World, only 5 had survived the calamity of the Flame World's destruction. The other superpowers that had survived the calamity were also first-rate superpowers. One had to know that, except for first-rate superpowers, no superpower below first-rate had the ability to establish a small heaven and earth. Naturally, they hadn't survived the calamity. However, there were many first-rate superpowers that had attached themselves to the superpowers and used their strength to survive the calamity. In short, the superpowers were the strongest on the Flame Planet, followed by the first-rate superpowers. However, if several first-rate superpowers joined forces, they could contend with the superpowers. That was because the strongest expert on the flame planet was only a half-step Infinity Realm expert. Even before the flame world had been destroyed, true Infinity Realm experts had only existed in legends. No one had ever seen such a supreme existence with their own eyes. The current Grand Mist Divine race was definitely an overlord. The Grand Mist Divine race's first ancestor, Hong Sheng, was one of the few invincible experts on the flame planet. No superpower dared to casually declare war on the Grand Mist Divine race. However, today, someone had actually broken into the Hong Meng Divine City. Even the Hong Meng Divine City's layers of defensive formations couldn't stop this person. Such a huge commotion in the Hong Meng Divine City naturally couldn't escape the attention of the various superpowers. In fact, there were many spies from other superpowers outside the Hong Meng Divine City. Some of the Grand Mist Divine race's clansmen had even been bribed by other superpowers. This kind of thing was actually common among the various superpowers on the Flame Planet. Someone actually dares to break into the Hong Meng Divine City. The first ancestor of the Grand Mist Demons immediately left the Hong Meng Demon City after receiving the news. He was very curious as to who was so bold as to break into the Hong Meng Divine City. The Grand Mist Divine clan had grown in power in the past several hundred years, and their territory had expanded significantly. Since the Grand Mist Divine clan had defeated the Flame clan, the Grand Mist Divine clan's reputation on the Flame Star had reached its peak, especially the Grand Mist Divine clan's ancestor, Hong Sheng. The number one ancestor of the Grand Mist Demon race and human race were alarmed. They were curious as to who dared to start a war with the Grand Mist Divine race. At this moment, an aged voice resounded in Hong Meng Divine City. Then, an illusory figure appeared in front of Ji Yufei. "It's you." When that person saw Ji Yufei, his shock was no small matter. This person was none other than the first ancestor of the Grand Mist Divine race, Hong Sheng. 1,000 years ago, when he had fought with the first ancestor of the Yang clan, Yang Huatian, they had disturbed the Flame Realm Divine Tree in the depths of the earth. If it had not been for the person in front of him, Hong Sheng would have been dragged into the ground by the Flame Realm Divine Tree and become its fertilizer. Although it had only been a quick glance, Ji Yufei's appearance had been deeply imprinted in Hong Sheng's mind. When Ji Yufei appeared in front of Hong Sheng once again, Hong Sheng recognized Ji Yufei at a glance. The instant Hong Sheng recognized Ji Yufei, cold sweat broke out on his forehead. "This guy is Yang Huatian's master. This is going to be troublesome." The moment Hong Sheng recognized Ji Yufei, he knew why Ji Yufei had barged into Hong Meng Divine City. It was obvious that Ji Yufei wanted to take revenge for the Yang clan. Hong Sheng was even more shocked when he thought of this. "I didn't know that Senior was coming. Please forgive me for not going out to welcome you." Hong Sheng bowed respectfully to Ji Yufei. When the surrounding ancestors of the Grand Mist Divine race saw this scene, their eyeballs nearly popped out of their sockets. Their first ancestor was actually lowering his head in front of the black-clad young man. How was this possible? The entire place fell silent. "You know me?" Ji Yufei asked curiously. However, he soon realized that he was the one who had saved this fellow from the hands of the Flame Realm Divine Tree, Yang Wu. "Junior will never forget the favor of saving my life in the past," Hong Sheng said cautiously. "You don't dare to forget. Then why are you biting the hand that fed you?" Ji Yufei stared at Hong Sheng, who was opposite him, and a wave of infinite-grade pressure erupted from his body. Hong Sheng felt his body sink as though 100,000 ancient divine mountains were pressing down on him. He couldn't even straighten his back. The rest of the Grand Mist Divine race's ancestors cried out in alarm as they plummeted from the sky, crashing heavily onto the ground. However, the others in the city were fine. That was because Ji Yufei's aura wasn't directed at the others in the city. It was directed at the ancestors of the Grand Mist Divine race. The ancestors of the Grand Mist Divine race were terrified. At this moment, they finally understood why their number one ancestor was so respectful to the black-clad young man. This black-clad young man was incredible. "Senior, are you talking about the Yang clan?" Hong Sheng asked calmly. This person was Yang Huatian's master. Who was Yang Huatian? Yang Huatian's cultivation was comparable to his. Hong Sheng was extremely nervous, but he couldn't show it. What do you think? Ji Yufei said coldly as a wave of cold killing intent spread from his body. Hong Sheng felt as though he had fallen into an ice cave when he sensed the killing intent from Ji Yufei's body. His body trembled. Senior, please calm down. I didn't kill the Yang clan. The Yang clan has already retreated into the Nether Seer. Hong Sheng said hurriedly. It's not that you didn't kill the Yang clan. You just didn't dare to enter the Nether Seer. Am I right? How could Ji Yufei not know what Hong Sheng was thinking? Senior, I was wrong about the Yang clan. However, the law of the jungle is the law of the cultivation world. Isn't it normal for the Yang clan to be chased away because they are weak? You can say whatever you want. However, if you don't give me an explanation today, don't blame me for being merciless. Ji Yufei said impatiently. Senior, what the Yang clan can do, our clan can also do. Why don't our clan replace the Yang clan and become your servants? Hong Sheng said. What? The surrounding Grand Mist Divine Race members were dumbfounded when they heard Hong Sheng's words. What's wrong with the ancestors? Chapter 54-57. The fact that the first ancestor of the primordial chaos divine race was willing to be the black-robed young man's servant dumbfounded the other ancestors of the primordial chaos divine city. Hong Sheng was the first ancestor of the primordial chaos divine race, a supreme existence at the half-step peerless realm. He was also one of the few invincible existences on the Flame Star. Basically, no one on the Flame Star would be able to do anything to him now. Even the first ancestor of the primordial chaos divine human race and the first ancestor of the primordial chaos divine human race had to admit that they were on par with Hong Sheng. If they really fought with their lives on the line, no one knew who would survive until the very last moment. Has Hong Sheng gone mad? The first ancestor of the primordial chaos divine race was shocked when he saw this scene. The first ancestor of the other superpowers was also dumbfounded. No one knew what Hong Sheng was up to. The primordial chaos divine race wants to replace the Yang clan and become my servants. Ji Yufei was also a little surprised. He hadn't expected Hong Sheng to make such a move. Hong Sheng's words weren't unreasonable. He had subdued the Yang clan so that the ancestors of the Yang clan would work for him. Therefore, it really didn't matter who became his servant. Senior, what do you think? Hong Sheng asked cautiously when he saw Ji Yufei pondering. Are you willing to be my servants? Ji Yufei stared at Hong Sheng with a fierce look in his eyes. Senior, the strong are respected, and the weak submit to the strong. This is an unchanging truth, Hong Sheng said solemnly. Hong Sheng said with a dignified look. That makes sense. All right, since you want to be my servants so badly, I'll fulfill your wish. As Ji Yufei spoke, he flipped his right hand and a ball of divine light immediately appeared in his palm. Within this ball of light, there were Tao patterns faintly appearing and intertwining. What is that? The surrounding ancestors of the primordial chaos divine race stared nervously at the ball of divine light in Ji Yufei's hand. Bam! Suddenly, the ball of light in Ji Yufei's hand exploded. In the next moment, the runes turned into the divine light of the Great Path and rushed into the bodies of all the ancestors present. Even Hong Sheng's body was hit by the divine light of the Great Path. Traces of the Tao appeared between Hong Sheng's eyebrows, but they disappeared in an instant. Hong Sheng was taken aback. He hurriedly used his internal vision to find the Great Path Tao pattern that Ji Yufei had injected into his body. However, under his powerful spiritual force, there seemed to be nothing strange in his body. He actually could not sense the existence of that Tao pattern. How is this possible? Hong Sheng was so scared that he broke out in a cold sweat. What happened? Hong Sheng looked at Ji Yufei in shock. It's nothing much. Since you all wish to become my servants, your life and death shall naturally be under my control. I have merely placed a forbidden technique on your bodies. Right now, your life and death are in my hands. Ji Yufei said indifferently. What? The ancestors of the primordial divine race nearly wet their pants when they heard this. Their lives and death were in the hands of this person? What did you do to our bodies? One of the ancestors of the primordial divine race shouted angrily at Ji Yufei. Ji Yufei sneered. In the next moment, he snapped his fingers. Then, before the ancestor of the primordial divine race could think of anything else, he exploded on the spot and turned into a cloud of blood mist. His body and soul were instantly destroyed. All the ancestors of the primordial divine race were so shocked that they were speechless. Cold sweat broke out on the foreheads of all the ancestors of the primordial divine race. You have to be more polite to your master, understand? Jiyu Fei clapped his hands and said indifferently, "Yes, master." Hong Sheng immediately knelt down in front of Jiyu Fei respectfully. "Yes, master." The other ancestors of the primordial divine race followed suit and knelt down in front of Jiyu Fei. Their lives and deaths were in the hands of Jiyu Fei, and none of them wanted to die. As the ancestors of the primordial divine race, none of them were easy to deal with. "Very good. Stand up." Jiyu Fei nodded his head in satisfaction. The ancestors of the primordial divine race stood up cautiously. "Master, please follow me," Hong Sheng said as he led Jiyu Fei into the city lord's manor. Very quickly, Hong Zhen left the primordial divine city and headed straight for the Nether Seer. He wanted to invite the Yang clan out of their seclusion. The primordial divine race and the Yang clan were archenemies. After the war between the two clans several hundred years ago, the Yang clan was forced to retreat to the Nether Seer. Hong Zhen went to invite the Yang clan, but it was hard to say if he could get the Yang clan to leave the underworld province. Jiyu Fei didn't abandon the Yang clan. After all, the members of the Yang clan were his subordinates. He wouldn't abandon his subordinates no matter where he was or what world he was in. He wanted to resolve the enmity between the Yang clan and the primordial divine race. That way, he would have two powerful clans at his disposal. The primordial divine race was much stronger than the Yang clan. Otherwise, the primordial divine race wouldn't have been able to defeat the Yang clan and force them to hide in the Nether Seer. Just as Jiyu Fei entered the primordial divine city, the flame realm divine tree, Yang Wu, appeared in the primordial divine race's Hongmeng sacred city. To the demon race, this city was called the Sacred City. However, to the other superpowers, it was called the Primordial Divine City. This city was protected by layers of array formations. However, Yang Wu continued to advance step by step. Not a single formation could stop her wherever she went. Enemy attack! An angry roar resounded from the top of the city walls and spread throughout the entire city. In the next moment, countless members of the primordial divine race realized that someone had broken into the city. Very quickly, the members of the primordial divine race in the city reacted immediately. However, Yang Wu ignored all of the primordial demon clan's attacks and appeared in the primordial demon city without a second thought. How is this possible? The ancestor of the primordial divine race was dumbfounded. Without any suspense, the members of the primordial divine race became Yang Wu's servants. When the news of the primordial divine race being subdued spread, all the superpowers on the flame planet were terrified. They were afraid that the two powerful fellows would show up uninvited. However, when Yang Wu subdued the members of the primordial divine race, she didn't hurt any of the members of the primordial divine race. When the news reached the primordial divine city, even Jiyu Fei was a little surprised. What the hell was Yang Wu doing? Yang Wu was once the world will of Flame World. She was the ruler of Flame World. She had never thought of developing her own faction. However, things were different now. Chapter 54-58. The entire Flame World shrunk and turned into a star in the endless chaos. This star was the Flame Star. This Flame Star was originally a dead star that didn't have any life on it. However, not long after Jiyu Fei had arrived, this dead star had begun to revive. 9 divine springs of life had appeared on the Flame Star. These 9 divine springs of life were the source of life for the Flame Star. As long as the 9 divine springs of life existed, the dead star would recover its vitality. The 9 divine springs of life were controlled by the various superpowers. Only the ancestor-level existences of these superpowers were allowed to use the divine springs of life to cultivate. As for ordinary living beings, they weren't even qualified to take a look at the divine springs of life, let alone use them to cultivate. After 1,000 years of competition, the power structure on the Flame Star had basically stabilized. The conflicts between the various superpowers had also decreased. However, everything changed when Jiyu Fei and the Flame World's divine tree, Yang Wu, returned to the Flame Star. The primordial divine clan, which used to be extremely powerful, immediately submitted to Jiyu Fei. The primordial divine clan, on the other hand, submitted to Yang Wu. As a result, the power structure on the Flame Star had undergone earth-shattering changes. The divine springs of life controlled by the two superpowers had changed owners. At this time, Jiyu Fei was sitting cross-legged in front of the divine spring of life in the center of the Grand Mist Divine City. The primordial divine clan had laid out layers of formations around the divine spring of life. However, these formations were useless against Jiyu Fei. The ancestor of the primordial divine clan, Hong Sheng, stood cautiously not far behind Jiyu Fei. However, Jiyu Fei didn't take the divine spring with him. After all, if he did, the flame star would be crippled, and the life force it had recovered would gradually fade. The entire star would become a dead star again. However, Hong Sheng didn't know what Jiyu Fei was planning to do. He was afraid that Jiyu Fei would take the divine spring of life. After all, the divine spring of life represented the future of the primordial divine clan. Jiyu Fei didn't use the divine spring of life to cultivate. With his current cultivation base, the divine spring of life was no longer of any use to him. Swoosh! At that moment, a beam of divine light descended from the sky and landed on Hong Sheng's hand. Soon, Hong Sheng's expression turned grave. "Master," Hong Zhen sent a message. "The flame race doesn't believe Hong Zhen at all. They don't dare to leave the Netherworld Sea." Hong Sheng said carefully. Then take this thing with you and make a trip yourself." Jiyu Fei pondered this for a while. Then, he made a grabbing motion in the void with his right hand. A piece of divine jade immediately appeared in his hand. He placed a seal on the divine jade and threw it to Hong Sheng. "Yes, Master." Hong Sheng hurriedly caught the piece of divine jade and carefully retreated. It seems that Yang Huatian is afraid of Hong Sheng. Jiyu Fei shook his head helplessly. In the Netherworld Sea, the death chi soared into the sky. The place where the Netherworld Sea was located was covered by a layer of black mist, causing the entire world to darken. However, this was not the most frightening aspect of the Netherworld Sea. It also rained from time to time. This was the terrifying death rain. A single drop of death rain could kill an extreme powerhouse. In addition to the death rain, the Netherworld Sea often erupted with death storms. In addition, there were countless unknown dangers in the Netherworld Sea. This was the reason why no one on the Flame Star was willing to enter the Netherworld Sea. In everyone's eyes, the Netherworld Sea was a terrifying land of death. However, there were many people living on an island in the middle of this land of death. These people were the clansmen of the Flame Race. This island in the Netherworld Sea had signs of life. This was because there was a small spring in the middle of the island. The spring water from this spring was full of vitality. There were actually quite a few houses built around this divine spring. A stockade surrounded the entire mouth of the spring. And this stronghold was called Yang Stronghold. The people living in the Yang village were naturally the clansmen of the Flame Race. Meanwhile, the senior members of the Flame Race were gathered in a stone house behind the village. Yang Huatian, the first patriarch of the Flame Race, was sitting in the main seat. "Patriarch, what are those people from the primordial divine clan trying to do?" Yang Hui, the patriarch of the Flame Race, asked Yang Huatian. "That's right. That Hong Zhen actually lied to us, saying that Master has returned. Does he think we are as stupid as pigs?" Another patriarch of the Flame Race, Yang Wu, said angrily. The other ancestors of the Flame Race were also infuriated. The primordial divine clan had gone too far. "Enough. All of you, shut up," Yang Huatian roared. The stone house instantly fell silent, and everyone looked at Yang Huatian. So what if the primordial divine clan has 100 tricks up their sleeves? As long as we don't leave this place, what can they do to us? Yang Huatian swept a glance at everyone and said coldly. They had been defeated in the battle with the primordial divine clan, and they had been forced to enter the Netherworld Sea. This was a humiliation to the entire Flame Race. There were only these 7 ancestors of the Yang clan who were able to survive until now. Yang Huatian was also among these 7. In other words, the flame race had almost been annihilated by the primordial divine clan. How could they leave the Netherworld Sea just because of Hongzhen's words? The members of the flame race had been living a good life on the island, as there was a small divine spring of life on the island. Although the divine spring of life on the island was small, the flame race could gradually recover with the help of the divine spring of life. Yang Huatian, why don't you come out and meet an old friend? At that moment, a voice rang in the minds of every member of the flame race on the island. What? The ancestors of the flame race in the stone house were shocked. It's Hongsheng. Yang Huatian was extremely familiar with this voice. Hongsheng is here. The other ancestors of the flame race were shocked when they heard this. To them, Hongsheng was their nightmare. Ancestor, this. The other ancestors in the stone house looked at Yang Huatian. Why are you panicking? Does Hongsheng dare to barge in here? Yang Huatian sneered. He knew how terrifying the Netherworld Sea was, and Hongsheng wouldn't take the risk to barge into the Netherworld Sea unless he was tired of living. As expected, Hongsheng had no intention of barging into the Netherworld Sea. However, Yang Huatian didn't intend to go out either. As such, they were in a deadlock again. Master has something for you. Aren't you going to come out? Hongsheng's voice was cold. Master? Yang Huatian was shocked. Was his master still alive? In fact, they were all alive and well. Yang Huatian knew that their master hadn't perished, but he didn't know where his master had gone. Now, the person who had disappeared for 1,000 years had reappeared. How could Yang Huatian believe this? Hongsheng, you be *starred. Save it. Do you think I will fall for your trick? Yang Huatian sent a voice transmission to Hongsheng. This guy. Chapter 54-59. Spiritual energy swirled around an island in the depths of the Nether Sea. The place was full of vitality and lush greenery. This island used to be a nameless island. However, it had become the territory of the Yang tribe. The Yang tribe had been living here for hundreds of years. They naturally didn't want to stay here as the island wasn't very big. The Yang tribe was like a bird trapped in a cage. They dreamed of flying out of this damned cage. However, they couldn't fly out. The moment they left the island, they would be hunted down by the bastards from the Grand Mist divine race. The outcome of being hunted down by the bastards from the Grand Mist divine race was death. This was the reality that the Yang tribe had to face. However, one of the ancestors of the Grand Mist divine race, Hongzhen, had taken the risk to enter the Nether Sea. He had even brought news to the Yang tribe. Their master had returned. However, no one in the Yang tribe believed Hongzhen. They thought that Hongzhen was trying to trick them into leaving the Flaming Island and then catch them all in one fell swoop. The Flaming Island had been managed by the Yang tribe for hundreds of years. The entire island was covered in layers of array formations that were connected to the divine spring of life on the island. With the essence of the divine spring of life supplying energy to the array formations, the power of the array formations multiplied. Even if Hongsheng came personally, he wouldn't be able to break through the array formations. This was also the reason why the Yang tribe could hide here and recuperate. As the Yang tribe hid here, even the Grand Mist divine race couldn't do anything to them. Hongzhen naturally couldn't enter the Flaming Island. Hence, Hongsheng came. Yang Huatian, how about we fight? Hongsheng stood outside the Flaming Island and studied the array formations. Yang Huatian, that lunatic, actually used the divine spring of life to set up the array formations. Hongsheng knew that there was a small divine spring of life on the Flaming Island. Hongsheng hadn't expected that a lunatic like Yang Huatian would be willing to use the divine spring of life to set up the array formations. Once the array formations were broken, the divine spring of life would also be affected. The divine spring of life was incomparably precious to them. However, the Yang tribe didn't have anything else they could rely on. In order to avoid being exterminated by the Grand Mist divine race, Yang Huatian could only use the divine spring of life to set up the array formations. Do you think I'm afraid of you? I didn't come looking for you, but you actually came looking for me. That's great. I'll kill you first, then I'll exterminate your Grand Mist divine race. An earth-shattering killing intent erupted from the Flaming Island. In the next moment, a figure rushed out from the island. Boom! Boundless killing intent swept across the sky and earth. The winds and clouds around Flame Island immediately changed color. Huge waves appeared on the calm surface of the sea. Under the ink-black water, there were actually white bones. The yang of the Flame Island was buried under the sea. Of CC. An endless aura of death erupted from the netherworld sea. Black waterspouts appeared on the surface of the sea around Flame Island. CCC. Of the Beyond. Of Hong of the Flame. Dragon of Sea of the Yang Yang, the of the Sea, the of the of. Of Yang Yang Yang. However, it wasn't that there weren't any spectators. The only difference was that this person wasn't in the Netherseer. He was in the distant Hong Meng Divine City. That's right, the person watching the battle was Ji Fei. With Ji Fei's peerless peak cultivation level, his immortal will could travel through the endless void, enter the Nethersea and arrive above the Flame Island. You're not bad either. Guarding a divine spring of life, your cultivation is about to take a crucial step forward. Yang Huatian sneered. Same here. Come, let's fight to our heart's content. Let's see who can take that final step. Hong Sheng's expression became serious. A shocking might erupted from his body. This was the might of a half-step to the infinite prime realm. The reason he took the risk to enter the Netherworld Sea to look for Yang Huatian was because he wanted to use a life-and-death battle with Yang Huatian to break through the shackles of his cultivation and take that final step. However, Yang Huatian also wanted to make use of Hong Sheng to take that step. Yang Huatian had been hiding on the Flaming Island for hundreds of years. He was not playing around. Very well, come on then, Yang Huatian said as he made his move. Rumble, 10 balls of divine light appeared above the Netherworld Sea, illuminating the entire place and dispersing the endless death chi. These 10 balls of divine light were like 10 divine suns that crushed towards Hong Sheng. The entire void shook, and it seemed like the world was about to collapse. Patriarch, this is, the members of the Flame Clan on the Flaming Island were extremely shocked when they saw the shocking scene outside the island. Success or failure depends on this battle. Yang Hui, the patriarch of the Flame Clan, clenched his fists. Boom! Hong Sheng transformed into a huge Hong Meng divine being. He opened his mouth and inhaled, intending to swallow the 10 sun-like divine rays. The two half-step to the infinite prime realm existences started fighting. At that moment, a figure passed through the layers of arrays and appeared on the Flaming Island. What? How could this be? Enemy attack. The Flaming Island was in chaos. All the members of the Flame Clan were panicking, and even the patriarchs of the Flame Clan were so shocked that their eyeballs almost fell to the ground. There was actually someone who could pass through the layers of arrays and enter the Flaming Island. Didn't this mean that the cultivation of such an existence had surpassed the half-step to the infinite prime realm? Was this the true legendary supreme existence of the infinite prime realm? That blurry figure walked directly towards the location of the divine spring of life. Soon, the figure arrived in front of the divine spring of life. The patriarchs of the Flame Clan also appeared near the divine spring of life. They were extremely nervous as they stared at the figure. However, none of them dared to make a move. This was because this person was too strong. The aura that he exuded was unbearable. All the patriarchs of the Flame Clan were terrified. They had a feeling that if they got close to this figure, their bodies and souls would be destroyed and they would die a horrible death. It's just a small spring. Ji Fei was a little disappointed. However, it was impressive that the Flame Clan could find such an island in a place like the Netherworld Sea. Most of the islands in the Netherworld Sea were dead lands. Only an extremely small number of islands had the aura of life. It was a miracle that a divine spring of life had appeared here. At that moment, Ji Fei's divine consciousness incarnation started to become clearer. Master! It's really Master! Yang Hui and the other patriarchs of the Flame Clan were dumbfounded when they saw Ji Fei's divine consciousness incarnation. Then, they were overjoyed. Master had really returned. There was going to be a good show to watch. Chapter 5460. Ever since Ji Fei's cultivation base had broken through to the Great Perfection Infinite Realm, his divine sense had reached an unimaginable level. The current flame star only contained some incomplete laws of heaven and earth. Naturally, such laws of heaven and earth couldn't suppress Gu Fei. In fact, with Gu Fei's current cultivation base, even if he returned to the Void Realm, the incomparably powerful laws of heaven and earth wouldn't be able to suppress him. On this flame star, Gu Fei could cover more than half of the flame star with a single thought. However, this star floating in the endless chaos was simply too huge. After all, this star used to be a super great world. Even though this super great world had shrunk to less than 1/10,000th of its original size, with the strength of Gu Fei's divine sense, he still couldn't cover the entire flame star. This was enough to prove that the flame world used to be really huge. It was likely that the laws of heaven and earth in the flame world were stronger than the Void Realm. At this time, Gu Fei's true body was in the Hongmeng Divine City. His divine sense clone had crossed the endless void and appeared in the Nether Seer. It completely ignored the Nether Seer array formations and entered the Flame Island. As a result, the Flame Tribe members on the Flame Island were scared half to death. However, when Gu Fei's divine will incarnation revealed its true appearance, Yang Hui and the other Yang clan's patriarchs were surprised and overjoyed. It turned out that the person who had suddenly barged into Scorching Island was their master who had disappeared for 1,000 years. "Greetings, Master." Yang Hui and the other Flame Tribe ancestors rushed over and knelt in front of Gu Fei. Their master had returned. Their bitter days were finally over. The Flame Tribe ancestors who had survived the primordial divine race's pursuit were incomparably excited. "Rise." Gu Fei's divine sense clone waved his hand and looked up into the sky. Yang Hui and the others cautiously stood up. At this time, in the sky above the Flame Island, two figures were moving at high speed. Muffled sounds of collisions resounded from the sky. The surface of the sea around the Flame Island was turbulent. The fluctuations of Yuan Qi from the sky created huge waves on the surface of the sea. Black waterspouts appeared on the surface of the sea. The Netherworld Sea's seawater wasn't ordinary seawater. It was condensed with boundless death energy, and a single drop could injure an extreme Dao realm expert. If they fell into the dark sea, even an extreme Dao realm expert would be corroded into a skeleton by the seawater. These two fellows are equally matched. I wonder how long this fight will last. Gu Fei's will incarnation muttered to itself. Yang Hui and the others naturally didn't dare say anything. However, their master had said that the old ancestor and Hong Sheng were equally matched. That was definitely true. The old ancestor still had a chance to win. The Grand Mist divine race occupied a divine spring of life. As the first ancestor of the Grand Mist divine race, Hong Sheng was naturally more qualified than anyone else to use the divine spring of life to cultivate. With the help of the divine spring of life, Hong Sheng's cultivation had naturally improved. Fortunately, the Yang clan had discovered this island in the Netherworld Sea. In the middle of this island, there was also a divine spring of life. Of course, this divine spring of life couldn't be compared to the divine fist that the Grand Mist divine race controlled. This was because this divine spring of life was very small. However, even though the divine spring of life on the Flame Island was small, it was still enough for Yang Huatian. This was also the reason why Yang Huatian's cultivation had improved a lot after hiding here for hundreds of years. Kill! Kill! Yang Huatian and Hong Sheng roared and attacked each other at the same time. Their eyes were bloodshot, and they used all their strength without holding anything back. They wanted to stimulate all their potential and sublimate themselves in this life-and-death battle to take that step forward. However, it was easier said than done to take that step forward. Gu Fei's incarnation could tell what these two fellows wanted to do with a single glance. How could the infinite prime realm be broken through so easily? Yang Huatian and Hong Sheng were both half-step infinite primes, but they were too naive to think that they could break through to the infinite prime realm through a life-and-death battle. Gu Fei was not optimistic about these two fellows. As Yang Huatian and Hong Sheng fought to the death in the sky, Gu Fei's incarnation was a little bored. He was not interested in a battle of this level. "Master, look," Yang Hui said carefully. "You want me to take action?" Gu Fei's incarnation naturally knew what Yang Hui wanted to say. "Your eyesight is too poor. Jiyu Fei's incarnation shook his head helplessly. What? Yang Hui was confused. You can't even tell that I am an incarnation of a spiritual will? Jiyu Fei's incarnation was speechless. Yang Hui was really dumbfounded. He really could not tell that the master in front of him was a spiritual will incarnation. The other patriarchs of the Yang clan were also dumbfounded. Their master was actually a spiritual will incarnation, and his real body was not here. However, the spiritual will incarnation was so real. Jiyu Fei's spiritual will incarnation was exactly the same as the real person. Who could tell? Moreover, the primordial divine race has already submitted to me. Jiyu Fei's incarnation said indifferently. Yang Hui and the others were dumbfounded. Could it be that Hong Zhen from the primordial divine race was telling the truth? Master actually subdued the primordial divine race? This news was really too shocking. The primordial divine race was not a weak race. The current primordial divine race was one of the most powerful races on the flame star. However, when Yang Hui and the others remembered that their master was a supreme infinite prime, they felt that it would not be difficult for Jiyu Fei to subdue the primordial divine race. Alright, when they are done fighting, you guys come to the primordial divine city to look for me. Jiyu Fei's incarnation was not interested in staying here any longer. The nether seer was filled with death chi. Although he was not afraid of the death chi, the atmosphere here was too gloomy, and it affected his mood. Yang Hui and the others did not expect Jiyu Fei's incarnation to leave so quickly. They wanted to persuade their master to stay. Boom! Before Yang Hui could speak, a loud explosion resounded from the depths of the nether seer. A terrifying death chi swept out from the depths of the nether seer. The entire nether seer was stirred. What's going on? Jiyu Fei's incarnation could not help but frown. He had sensed a terrifying death chi. This death chi was very strong, and it was definitely at the infinite primordial divine race's level. He had not expected such a big fellow to be hiding in the flame star's Dead Sea. She's out. Yang Hui and the other ancestors of the flame tribe paled. They immediately activated the Flame Island's layers of grand formations. Even though the death chi was weakened by the Flame Island's layers of grand formations, it still caused the ancestors of the flame tribe to shiver uncontrollably. Only Jiyu Fei's incarnation was unafraid of this death chi. Chapter 5461. The nether sea suddenly changed, and the weather changed. A terrifying deathly aura spread in all directions, as if a terrifying existence had awakened from its slumber. The commotion caused by the battle between Yang Huitian and Hong Sheng was so great that it had awakened an unknown, terrifying existence. At that moment, a terrifying black chi swept out from the depths of the nether sea, covering the sky and covering the earth. Within the black chi, two terrifying blood-colored lights could be seen. Those were the eyes of a terrifying existence. Jiyu Fei's divine consciousness clone had originally wanted to leave. However, he was now very curious as to what kind of big fellow was hiding in the nether sea. This fellow was an absolute infinite prime. Apart from himself and the Flame Realm Divine Tree, Yang Wu, no one else on the Flame Star was a match for this fellow. Moreover, this fellow was the opposite of life. This fellow represented death. At that moment, even Yang Huitian and Hong Sheng, who were fighting in the sky, stopped. They felt a great threat, as the existence in the black chi had already targeted them. Endless black chi surged and turned into a death hand that was even bigger than a mountain, grabbing at Yang Huitian and Hong Sheng. The hand of death covered the entire sky, and the terrifying power of death that emanated from the hand of death actually sealed the entire space between heaven and earth. What? Yang Huitian felt his body tighten. Then, he couldn't even move a finger. He was scared half to death. The same was true for Hong Sheng. He was also imprisoned in the void by that terrifying existence and couldn't move at all. Both Hong Sheng and Yang Huitian were the top patriarchs of their respective clans. However, these two fellows had become meat on a chopping board, waiting to be slaughtered. We're doomed. Hong Sheng was also horrified. Just as the hand of death was about to grab them, a figure suddenly appeared in front of them. Then, the entire sky and earth became bright. However, no light was emitted from this person's body, and the darkness that shrouded the sky and earth was dispersed. "Master, Master, save me." Hong Sheng was both surprised and delighted when he saw the person who had come. Ji Yufei had come. No matter how terrifying this fellow was, he wouldn't have to die. "Master," Yang Huatian was dumbfounded when he saw Ji Yufei. His master had actually returned. Moreover, what was going on with Hong Sheng? Why did he call him master? Ji Yufei had come, but this was only a divine will incarnation. However, even the incarnation of his will was extremely powerful. With a single thought, he directly dispelled the deathly aura in the surroundings and confronted the existence that had rushed out from the depths of the netherworld sea. Hey! The existence hidden in the endless black gas was a bit surprised. There was actually someone who could contend against him. The ruler of the netherworld sea was unimaginably powerful. No one knew how long this existence had been sleeping in the depths of the netherworld sea. The Death Master had absorbed an endless amount of death force, and his cultivation had broken through to the infinite prime realm. The real infinite prime realm was not like Yang Huatian and Hong Sheng, who were half a step to the infinite prime realm. Before a true infinite prime, Yang Huatian and Hong Sheng were like ants. If the Death Master wanted to kill them, it would be no different from crushing an ant. Dead souls. Ji Yufei's divine will incarnation stared at the surging deathly black gas in front of him. His eyes were extremely bright. The aura of the great path that spread from Ji Yufei's divine will incarnation could actually contend against the deathly aura of the Death Master. This made Yang Huatian and Hong Sheng dumbfounded. In fact, Yang Huatian and Hong Sheng could not tell that the master in front of them was only a divine will incarnation. "Please call me the Death Master." A wave of divine will spread out from the black gas. "Death Master?" Ji Yufei's divine will incarnation smiled. An infinite prime dead soul could really be called the Death Master. This was because this was the strongest dead soul that he had ever seen. "Human, you are only an incarnation. How dare you be so presumptuous in front of me?" The wave of divine will spread out again. Incarnation? At this time, Yang Huatian and Hong Sheng realized that the master in front of them was actually an incarnation. Oh no, Yang Huatian and Hong Sheng felt that things were not going well. If their master was only an incarnation, how could he contend against the Death Master? These two fellas were already prepared to escape. Once Ji Yufei's divine will incarnation could not stop the Death Master, they would escape immediately. They did not want to die. "I did not act presumptuously in front of you. Which eye of yours saw me act presumptuously in front of you?" Ji Yufei's divine will incarnation said disapprovingly. "Then why did you stop me from killing them?" The Death Master sneered. "Why did I stop you from killing them? Because they are my subordinates. How could I just watch you kill them?" Ji Yufei's divine will incarnation's face turned solemn. At this time, the death hand that was condensed from endless black gas did not dissipate in the void. It was still shrouding above Ji Yufei's divine will incarnation and Yang Huatian's head. However, the confinement power that came from the death hand could not affect Ji Yufei's incarnation and the others. "They are your subordinates." The existence in the black gas seemed a little surprised. "Master, help." Yang Huatian and Hong Sheng hid behind Ji Yufei's divine will incarnation in fear. The Death Master that jumped out from the depths of the netherworld sea was extremely powerful and terrifying. If it were not for Ji Yufei's divine will incarnation, they would have been dead by now. "Then I will refine you too." The existence in the black gas said indifferently. "Haha, you can try." Ji Yufei's divine will incarnation laughed. He had never seen such an arrogant guy who wanted to refine himself. "Die." A shocking murderous aura erupted from the black gas, and the temperature of the entire world dropped rapidly. Yang Huatian and Hong Sheng felt as if they had suddenly fallen into an ice cave. Their bodies were cold and the chill went straight to their bones. They were powerful people at the half-step infinity realm, but even their souls were trembling at this time. "You guys back off." Ji Yufei's divine will incarnation stood with his hands clasped behind his back and said calmly. Yang Huatian and Hong Sheng glanced at each other and then rushed away. "You are just an incarnation." The Death Master in the black gas said disdainfully. Rumble, The death hand that was originally hovering in the sky suddenly trembled and released an even more powerful death energy. The huge death hand descended from the sky. Who said that an incarnation can't fight with you? Gu Fei's divine will incarnation said disapprovingly. Very well, I will kill you first, then find your original body and kill you too. Chapter 5462. The battle between Yang Huatian and Hong Sheng had awakened the mysterious Death Ruler of the Nether Ocean. The Death Ruler was extremely powerful. He was an infinite prime. Yang Huatian and Hong Sheng were as weak as ants in front of the Death Ruler. If Gu Fei's consciousness clone had not intervened in time, the two of them would have been refined and devoured by the Death Ruler. Rumble, a huge death hand descended from the sky and headed straight for Gu Fei's consciousness clone. A terrifying deathly aura spread in all directions. Even Yang Huatian and Hong Sheng, who were hiding far away, could feel their souls trembling. The deathly power that erupted from the death hand was just too shocking. Although there were many protective formations on the Flame Island, the clansmen of the Flame Clan were still trembling in fear. At this moment, Gu Fei's divine will incarnation, who was enveloped by the hand of death, stood calmly with his hands behind his back. However, the spiritual energy of the world around Gu Fei's consciousness clone, especially the deathly aura, was gathering towards him in a frenzy. In the Nether Ocean, deathly aura was the least lacking. Gu Fei's consciousness clone did not reject any of it. He could even refine and absorb the deathly aura and turn it into his own power. A huge sword shadow appeared on his body. Then, it shot into the sky and pierced through the descending death hand. Cold sword chi erupted from the sword shadow condensed by Gu Fei's consciousness clone, causing spatial ripples to appear in the surrounding void. Slaying the ruler with a single slash. Gu Fei's consciousness clone was extremely powerful. So what if it was just a consciousness clone? He dared to fight an infinite prime and slay the Death Ruler. Even the Death Ruler, who was hidden in the towering deathly aura, could not help but be shocked when he saw Gu Fei's consciousness clone unleash such an attack. This guy's clone was already so powerful. If his real body attacked, wouldn't it be even more powerful? What Gu Fei used to descend into the Netherworld Sea was only a divine will embodiment. The embodiment's combat strength was definitely not stronger than the real body. The real body's combat strength was definitely far above the embodiment's. However, Gu Fei's clone of the will of his soul was very powerful as well. After all, he was an existence at the major achievement of Infinite Prime. Even a clone of the will of his soul could wield power that was infinitely close to Infinite Prime. Moreover, Gu Fei had mastered the Ascension Secret Art, one of the 9 secrets of Immortal Tao. He had also cultivated the Extreme Breach Secret Art. Once he used these 2 secret arts at the same time, his battle prowess would definitely multiply. In this way, his divine will incarnation could really fight against the mysterious Death Master of the Netherworld Sea. Swoosh! The sword shadow flashed across the void. In the next moment, the death hand that descended from the sky was directly pierced by the sword shadow and dissipated in the void. What? The Death Ruler was both shocked and infuriated at the sight of this. His opponent was just a tiny divine sense clone, yet he was actually able to break this attack of his. Kill. A furious roar came from the black smoke. The entire void was shaken, and pitch-black spatial rifts appeared one after another. At this time, the laws of heaven and earth on the flame star had not yet taken shape, and the void was not very stable. Therefore, the Death Ruler's roar almost caused the surrounding void to collapse. Yang Huatian and Hong Sheng, who had retreated to a distant place, were also shocked by the Death Ruler's roar. Their ears buzzed, and their chi and blood surged up to their throats. They almost spat out a mouthful of blood. This guy, Yang Huatian and Hong Sheng, the 2 half-step Infinite Prime experts, were extremely frightened. In the face of this kind of power, they could not even think of resisting, because the Death Ruler was too powerful and terrifying. They, who were usually high and mighty, were not much stronger than ants in front of the Death Ruler. At this time, streaks of black light rushed out of the black smoke in front of Gu Fei's clone of the will, directly piercing through Gu Fei's clone of the will. Gu Fei's clone of the will saw that the streaks of black light that pierced through the black smoke were actually death spears condensed from endless death force. He sensed that the death spears that pierced through the black smoke were bursting out with frightening death force. Even Ji Fei's clone of the will would be doomed if it was pierced by these death spears. Here you go. Ji Fei's clone of the will split its hands, and a strange wave of power immediately spread out with him as the center. The void around him immediately produced a mysterious and profound vibration. Buzz! The void shook, and all the death spears that pierced through Ji Fei's clone of the will suddenly disappeared. However, in the next moment, all the death spears that had disappeared suddenly reappeared. The process was completed in an instant, and the death spears that had reappeared all shot back at the death ruler in the black smoke. This was one of the 9 secrets of the immortal Tao, the chaotic reversal secret skill. Once this secret skill was used, it could reverse the universe and all attacks back to the opponent twice. It had to be said that this secret skill was really heaven-defying. The chaotic reversal secret skill could even reverse the death ruler's attack when it was used by Ji Fei's clone of the will. This was a powerful move that was used by an infinite prime. How is this possible? The figure in the black smoke of death exclaimed. His attack had actually been reversed by this human's clone, which made him a little dumbfounded. This was because such a thing had never happened before. Before this, the death ruler had never thought that there would actually be someone in this world who could reverse his powerful move. This guy could actually reverse his powerful move. Didn't that mean that this guy was invincible? Yang Huatian and Hong Sheng were also dumbfounded when they saw this, and their eyeballs almost fell to the ground. All of the death spears were shot into the black gas and disappeared inside. Then, black vines rushed out of the black smoke and directly wrapped around Ji Fei's clone of the will. When Ji Fei's spiritual force incarnation saw this, he immediately threw a punch forward. Boom! His fist force instantly turned into a monstrous divine fire that swept forward, directly burning all the black vines that were trying to wrap around him into ashes. This was the fire element fist of the 5 elements fist that Ji Fei had mastered. The fist force was like fire, burning the whole world red, and even the void was distorted. At this moment, Yang Huatian and Hong Sheng realized that they could not even take a punch from the clone of the will of their master. The punch that Ji Fei's clone of the will had thrown was really powerful. The endless death chi was instantly dispersed by the fist force of the fire element fist of the will of Ji Fei's clone of the will, and a figure surrounded by death chi appeared in the void. Chapter 5463. Ji Fei's divine will clone communicated with the heavens and earth. He activated the boundless power of death. At this moment, he seemed to have transformed into another Death Master. He punched out. Boundless fire element fist force exploded. The fist force directly dispersed the overwhelming death energy in front of him. A figure surrounded by death energy appeared in front of him. When Ji Fei's divine will incarnation saw this figure, he was stunned. This death dominator, who was surrounded by a deathly aura, was actually a woman. Actually, Ji Fei's divine will clone really did not care whether this Deathmaster was a man or a woman. The problem was that this woman looked exactly the same as the Flame World's Realm Lord. When Ji Fei's divine will clone saw this woman, he thought that this person was Yang Wu. However, this person could not be Yang Wu. Because Yang Wu's body was filled with positive energy, while this woman in black was filled with negative energy. One positive and one negative, it was like a person's 2 extremes. Could it be, Ji Fei's divine will clone suddenly thought of something and couldn't help but look at this so-called Death Master in shock. A puny human can actually be so powerful. How is this possible? The slightly pale Death Master looked coldly at Ji Fei's divine will clone and said in an extremely calm tone. As the Death Master spoke, she waved her right hand. A dark light immediately blocked in front of her. The powerful fist force was actually blocked just like that. In my eyes, nothing is impossible. Ji Fei's divine will clone took a step forward and instantly appeared in front of the Death Master's protective light shield. Then, he punched out again. Bam! Ji Fei's spiritual will embodiment's punch landed heavily on the light shield. However, what shocked him was that there were only ripples visible to the naked eye on the Death Lord's protective light shield. You are not qualified to fight me. The Death Master extended her right hand and flicked at Ji Fei's divine will clone. In the next moment, Ji Yufei's divine will clone felt an extremely powerful force colliding with him. Then, he flew backwards. Ji Yufei's divine sense clone couldn't help but be shocked. This woman, who looked like Yang Wu, was simply too powerful. He had truly underestimated her. Hey! At this moment, the chief sovereign of death was rather surprised as well. This fellow had taken a bullet from her, but his divine will incarnation hadn't been destroyed. In fact, Ji Yufei's divine will embodiment was even more shocked. After all, Death Flame Dance had nearly shattered him with a casual flick of her finger. If the other party attacked again, he would really be broken into pieces. Hey, chick, do you have a twin sister? Ji Yufei's divine sense clone rushed over from afar and shouted at Death Flame Dance. What twin sisters? I, the chief hegemon, was born from the will of heaven and earth. I am a unique existence. Death Flame Dance's tone was as calm as ever. Haha, so that's how it is. Ji Yufei's spiritual will incarnation smiled. He had guessed correctly. What do you mean? Death Flame Dance said. Divinity and demonic nature, righteous and evil thoughts, twins. Ji Yufei's spiritual will incarnation said with a solemn expression. Death Flame Dance's expression finally changed when she heard what Ji Yufei's spiritual will incarnation said. This was because Ji Yufei's spiritual will had revealed her origins. She was actually Death Flame Dance. More accurately, she was formed from Death Flame Dance's evil thoughts. Otherwise, how could she have gathered such powerful death energy? One must know that even if all the living beings in the flame world died in the netherworld sea, the death energy of the entire flame world would not be able to produce an infinite prime, the supreme lord of death. Anyone who knows this hegemon's secret must die. As Death Flame Dance spoke, she extended her right hand and flicked a finger at Ji Yufei's spiritual will incarnation. This move again. Ji Yufei's spiritual will incarnation was already prepared. However, he still underestimated the power of a casual flick of the other party's finger. He used the chaotic reversal secret technique with all his might. However, the power of the other party's finger directly broke through his chaotic reversal secret technique. Then, a fist-sized hole appeared on Ji Yufei's spiritual will incarnation's chest. The hole on Ji Yufei's spiritual will incarnation's body gradually expanded. Soon, Ji Yufei's spiritual will incarnation completely disappeared in the void. It had been casually dispersed by the Death Ruler. Far away in the Grand Mist Divine Race's divine city, Ji Yufei suddenly opened his eyes. He actually dispersed one of my spiritual will incarnations? With a thought, Ji Yufei's figure disappeared in the void and reappeared in the sky above Hongmeng Divine City. Meanwhile, near the Flame Island in the Netherworld Sea, Yang Huatian and Hong Sheng were scared out of their wits by the scene in front of them. Their master's divine will incarnation had been destroyed by the Death Master. Ji Yufei's spiritual will incarnation was their lifesaver. Now, this lifesaver had been destroyed, which was very bad for them. The Flame Tribe's elders on the Flame Island were also dumbfounded. Who can save us? Yang Hui said in a trembling voice. It's just a spiritual will incarnation. The darkened Yang Wu had casually dispersed one of Ji Yufei's spiritual will incarnations. It seemed as though she had done it effortlessly. In fact, it wasn't easy for her to disperse Ji Yufei's spiritual will incarnation. However, in Yang Huatian's opinion, it was too easy for the Death Ruler to disperse their master's spiritual will incarnation. Hey, I didn't expect you to act tough too. Suddenly, a voice rang out. Then, a figure appeared in front of the darkened Yang Wu. The real body is finally here. The darkened Yang Wu said expressionlessly. Master, it's Master. When Yang Huatian and Hong Sheng saw that person, they were both surprised and delighted. Their master's real body had arrived, and it wasn't an incarnation. They were saved now. The people on the Flame Island were also ecstatic. Stop acting tough. You destroyed one of my incarnations. How are you going to compensate me? Ji Yufei sized up the darkened Yang Wu. Was this Yang Wu's evil intent? Actually, it wasn't accurate to say that it was evil intent. After all, the darkened Yang Wu was a living creature with some flesh. She wasn't an incarnation of evil intent. Not only will I destroy your incarnation, But I will also eat you. The darkened Yang Wu stretched out her right hand and grabbed at the person in front of her. Come on, I will let you eat me. Ji Fei hooked his finger at the darkened Yang Wu. In the next moment, the darkened flame dance's hand of death grabbed Ji Fei. What is Master trying to do? Chapter 54-64. Ji Fei's real body had finally arrived. Yang Huatian and Hong Sheng were overjoyed. Their master was here, and they would be saved. After all, their master was an infinite prime. Both Yang Huatian and Hong Sheng were like ants in front of Ji Fei. A half-step infinite prime was a half-step infinite prime after all. He was not a true infinite prime. The difference between an infinite prime and a half-step infinite prime was too great. However, Yang Huatian and Hong Sheng were shocked. The Death Master had condensed a death hand and grabbed Ji Fei. Yang Huatian and Hong Sheng were extremely shocked. If even Ji Fei wasn't a match for the Death Dominator of the Netherworld Sea, then they would really be doomed. Ji Fei was their only hope of survival. No one knew better than them how terrifying the Death Master was. Tempage, I thought you were powerful, darkened Yang Wu sneered. Dark Flame Dance sneered. Although she said that, she was actually surprised. How could this guy be so useless? Ji Fei's infinite prime cultivation was not fake. Since he was an infinite prime, even if he was not her weakest, he should not be so useless. He was caught in one move. Haha, how powerful do you think you are? Ji Fei laughed heartily. Although he was caught by Dark Flame Dance's hand of death, he didn't show any signs of panic or anxiety. You're so happy even when you're about to die. Then I'll send you on your way. As darkened Yang Wu said that, a ball of demonic fire appeared on her death hand. It was a terrifying death fire that could burn everything in the world. Of course, darkened Yang Wu had used this infinite death fire to refine countless powerful creatures in the fire world. There was a reason why she had hibernated in the Netherworld Sea. Hey, you're a girl. Why are you playing with fire? Ji Fei, who was caught by the death hand, was immediately enveloped by the death fire that erupted from the death hand. However, even though he was enveloped by the fire of death was unable to harm him because a layer of protective aura surged around him. It was this protective layer of Dipper energy that kept the deathly flames out of Ji Fei's body. It looked like Ji Fei was enveloped by the death fire, but the death fire couldn't even touch his clothes. This is bad, this is bad. This time, we really won't be able to escape. Yang Huatian practically despaired when he saw this scene. Even Hong Sheng was staring nervously at the hand of death in the void. At this moment, a powerful water elemental energy erupted from Ji Fei's body. After that, the death fire that was emanating from the death's hand was directly extinguished by this water elemental energy. Dark Flame Dance's expression changed upon seeing this. Open for me. At this moment, Ji Fei shouted loudly and an even more tyrannical power erupted from his body. The death hand that was grabbing him actually exploded. How is this possible? Dark Flame Dance was taken aback. This guy actually managed to break her death hand. At the moment when the death hand exploded, a figure rushed out and pounced directly at Dark Flame Dance at an extremely fast speed. Ji Fei was a warrior, and he was the purest warrior in the world. Warriors were best at close combat. During a battle with a warrior, the greatest taboo was for the warrior to get close to the warrior. This was because once the warrior got close to the warrior, the person fighting the warrior would be in deep trouble. Even if one's cultivation had reached Ji Fei's level, close combat was still one of his trump cards. However, Dark Flame Dance didn't want Ji Fei to get close to her. Like a phantom, Darkened Flame Dance flew backward, leaving behind a series of afterimages in the void that were hard to distinguish between real and fake. Ayo, you sure are fast. Ji Fei missed. Kill. Dark Flame Dance shouted. In the next moment, countless death threads rushed out from her body and wrapped around Ji Fei. These death threads were extremely terrifying. As long as they wrapped around him, even an infinite prime would be injured. Ji Fei's heart trembled. He also retreated, and he retreated even faster than Dark Flame Dance because he didn't want to be entangled by these death threads. Of course, This didn't mean that Ji Yufei was afraid of these death threads. Ji Yufei's martial body was well-tempered. The death threads that rushed out from Dark Flame Dance's body might not be able to hurt him. Although he retreated quickly, his right sleeve was still swept by a death thread. A piece of his sleeve fell off, as if it had been cut off by an extremely sharp blade. "Hey, little girl, you're so fierce. Be careful that you won't be able to get married," Ji Yufei shouted at Dark Flame Dance. "What did you say?" Hearing this, Dark Flame Dance was finally angered. She was a supreme ruler born from the world's will. This guy dared to humiliate her? Unforgivable. "I said that no one will want you if you're so fierce," Ji Yufei shouted again. Dark Flame Dance's face paled even more. She glared at Ji Yufei and wanted to tear Ji Yufei to pieces. "Girls need to be gentle, understand?" Ji Yufei continued speaking as if he did not notice Darkened Flame Dance's expression, which indicated that she wanted to skin him alive. "Go to hell." For the first time, Dark Flame Dance was so angry. Before this, no one dared to act impudently in front of her. Everyone who saw her would tremble in front of her. Some people were so frightened they couldn't even speak. In the eyes of the beings of Flame World, she represented death. Wherever she appeared, death would occur. But now, a human dared to say that she was fierce and that no one would want her. This was so disrespectful that she almost went crazy. Death threads erupted from Dark Flame Dance's body, enveloping Ji Yufei in an earth-shattering manner. The power of death contained in each thread of death was extremely strong. Even a thread of death that was thinner than a strand of hair could easily kill existences like Yang Huatian and Hong Sheng, who were half a step away from the realm of infinity. "Do you really think I'm afraid of you if I don't teach you a lesson?" As Ji Yufei spoke, his body shook. A domineering aura immediately erupted from his body. This time, he didn't dodge. Infinity Sword Energy. Chapter 5465. The Death Dominator of the Nether Ocean was completely enraged by Ji Yufei. Countless threads of death rushed out of her body and entangled Ji Yufei. Every thread of death that passed through the void would leave behind a spatial crack that was even smaller than a strand of hair. These threads of death were extremely terrifying. They could directly sever the souls of living beings. As long as one was entangled by these threads of death, there would only be one outcome: death in body and soul. At this moment, Ji Yufei had no choice but to get serious. This Darkened Flame Dance was no weakling. She was a bona fide infinite prime. Infinite Sword Chi. Without any hesitation, Ji Yufei immediately used his Sword Dao innate ability. Countless rays of sword light rushed out of his body and entangled the threads of death. The rays of sword light were extremely fast. However, every ray of sword light that Ji Yufei sent out accurately severed the threads of death that entangled them. The threads of death that were struck by the rays of sword light would immediately dissipate in the void. The sharp rays of sword light continued to entangle the Darkened Flame Dance. Chilling sword chi filled the sky and earth. The temperature of the entire void plummeted. The Darkened Flame Dance could not help but be shocked when she saw this. This guy really did have some ability. Whoosh! The Darkened Flame Dance immediately threw a punch. The countless rays of sword light that were coming towards her were directly dispersed by her punch. They turned into specks of light and disappeared in the void. Not only did her punch disperse Ji Yufei's rays of sword light, but it also caused spiderweb-like cracks to appear in the void in front of her. The fist force of the Darkened Flame Dance's punch was extremely violent. Not only did it disperse Ji Yufei's rays of sword light, but its momentum did not decrease at all as it continued to blast towards Ji Yufei. Heaven-splitting sword. Ji Yufei waved his right hand seemingly casually. In the next moment, the vast and violent fist force was directly split apart by his sword. The sword light was like a cold bolt of lightning, directly landing on the top of the Darkened Flame Dance's head. His sword pressed forward with an indomitable will, causing heaven and earth to pale in comparison. This was the battle prowess of a true infinite prime. Yang Huatian and Hong Sheng, who were only half-step infinite primes, definitely could not withstand Ji Yufei's attack. If Ji Yufei wanted to kill them, he would kill them instantly. Swoosh! Darkened Flame Dance immediately retreated. Although she had dodged the attack quickly, a corner of her clothes had been struck by the sword light, causing her to fall from the sky. The Dark Flame Dance was shocked. Ever since the will of Flame World had split into righteous and evil, no one had ever touched the clothes of this Dark Flame Dance. One had to know that she was the manifestation of the evil will of the world of Flame World. From a certain perspective, she was once the supreme ruler of Flame World. The world will of the Flame World was a supreme existence that reigned above all beings in the world. Who in the Flame World could touch her clothes? But today, this human had sliced off a piece of his robes. This was something that had never happened before. Again, 10,000 swords greeting, Jiyu Fei bellowed. In the next moment, an earth-shattering power of the sword Dao erupted from his body. After that, the swords of almost all the sword cultivators on the Flame Star started to vibrate. Some of the more powerful swords almost flew out of their owners' hands. The moment Jiyu Fei's 10,000 swords greeting appeared, the swords on the Flame Star immediately resonated. Countless swords seemed to be worshipping their supreme emperor. In just an instant, the Dark Flame Dance was drowned by the endless sword light. But in the next moment, the Dark Flame Dance actually broke through the layers of sword light and rushed out. Then, she reached out with her right hand and grabbed at Jiyu Fei. A hand of death immediately appeared in the air. Just as it was about to grab Jiyu Fei's figure actually disappeared. What? The Dark Flame Dance was shocked. Sigh, you're too slow. Jiyu Fei's voice sounded behind the Dark Flame Dance. The Dark Flame Dance abruptly turned around, only to see Jiyu Fei standing less than 10 feet behind her, looking at her calmly. The Dark Flame Dance had no choice but to be shocked. This human before her was really a little too ridiculously strong. You've actually awakened from your slumber. Just at this moment, a voice sounded. A powerful aura appeared in the Nether Sea. This aura was the complete opposite of the death aura of the Nether Sea. It was filled with vitality. A figure descended from the sky and appeared in the void of the world. This was a woman of unparalleled beauty. No one could describe this woman. What took you so long? Jiyu Fei wasn't surprised to see this woman in the slightest. Me. The woman didn't pay any attention to Jiyu Fei. Instead, she just stared at the Dark Flame Dance. Because this woman was none other than the Flame Dance. At this time, 2 flame dances had appeared. One was the flame dance brimming with vitality. This flame dance represented life. On the other hand, flame dance represented death. It's you. When the flame dance that represented death saw the flame dance of life, the death aura that erupted from her body grew even stronger. Even the void around her was vibrating. It was as though this entire world couldn't contain the flame dance of death. All right, I'll be watching your performance then. Jiyu Fei said as he retreated to the side. The flame dance of life was speechless. This guy called her over just to have her deal with this guy. I'll be invincible after devouring you. The flame dance of death set her sights on the flame dance of life. They were originally a single entity. Countless years ago, they had been separated. All this while, the flame dance of death had been trying to refine the flame dance of life. The flame dance of death and the flame dance of life had fought each other countless times. However, neither of them could do anything to the other, and the battle would always end in a draw. At this moment, the flame dance of life and the flame dance of death were facing off against each other. The auras of the 2 experts soared. Rumble, the entire Nether Sea was shaking. Huge waves rose as countless white bones at the bottom of the Nether Sea surged to the surface. This scene was simply too terrifying. These were the bones of countless living beings that had fallen. A terrifying death aura erupted. The entire Nether Sea was boiling. Meanwhile, the flaming island in the middle of the Nether Sea was like a lone boat on the sea that could capsize at any time. The group of patriarchs on the flaming island was horrified. They desperately operated the great array on the island to block the death aura that was surging in from all directions. Even so, the great array on the flaming island was on the verge of collapsing under the impact of the death aura. Jiyu Fei was also surprised to see this scene. These 2 girls had really hidden their strength well. They only revealed their true strength now. This was a battle of life and death. Chapter 5466. To Jiyu Fei, it was not a strange thing to have twins, because humans also had demonic and divine natures. If demonic and divine natures appeared in a person at the same time, then that person could also be divided into gods and demons. The old ancestor of the Void Realm, Yuxian and Palace Master Ling Tian were twins. Moreover, they could fuse together and become the limitless sword master of the limitless realm. However, Yuxian and Ling Tian Palace Master's situation was different. They weren't separated because the demonic and divine natures couldn't coexist. They were separated because the limitless sword master cultivated a secret technique. But now, the difference between the flame of life dance and the flame of death dance was like the difference between divinity and demonic. One represented life, while the other represented death. This was the first time Jiyu Fei encountered such a situation. Boom! At this moment, the entire heavens and the earth shook violently, and then two figures instantly collided with each other. It was as if two stars were colliding. Terrifying destructive energy spread in all directions. The entire surface of the Nether Sea collapsed, revealing the bones and mud that had accumulated for countless years. The show is finally starting. Jiyu Fei smiled. Towering waves rose from the Netherworld Sea and swept towards the Yang clan's Flame Island. If they were to be affected by the waves, even if the Yang clan's Flame Island was protected by layers of arrays, it would still be destroyed by the waves. One should know that the wave wasn't just any ordinary wave. It contained the power of the two experts in the sky. The Yang clan's old ancestors on the island were scared out of their wits when they saw the wave. They had nowhere to run in the Nether Sea. "We're dead." Yang Hui's voice was trembling. The other Yang clan's old ancestors were in despair. Yang Huitian was also anxious because he couldn't save his clansmen on the island with his current cultivation. Jiyu Fei looked in the direction of the island and waved his right hand. A huge seal flew out from his hand and descended from the sky. This huge seal became even bigger than a mountain and floated in the sky above Flame Island. Boom! Boundless chaotic chi erupted from the seal and enveloped the entire scorching island. At this moment, the huge wave that swept over directly slammed into the chaotic aura that was descending from the seal, but was blocked by the chaotic aura. The primal chaos seal constantly trembled. The huge wave contained the power of an infinite prime. Even the primal chaos seal forged by Jiyu Fei was shaken. However, even though the primal chaos seal was shaken, the giant waves were unable to break through its power. The Yang clan's patriarchs on the Flaming Island had escaped a calamity. Yang Hui and the others on the island heaved a sigh of relief after escaping death. "Thank you for saving me, Master." Yang Hui and the others all knelt down towards Jiyu Fei in the sky. At this time, Jiyu Fei had no time to pay attention to them. Boom! Bam! Incomparably shocking collisions rang out continuously. Every time a collision occurred, the entire space would tremble violently. It was as if the entire world was on the verge of being destroyed. The flame world had been destroyed, and the entire superworld had been reduced to a star in the primal chaos. The power of laws of heaven and earth on the flame star was very weak to begin with. If the flaming dance of life and the flaming dance of death hadn't intentionally controlled their power, the surrounding space would have collapsed long ago. In this place, it was extremely easy for an infinite prime to shatter the space. However, no one would shatter the space so easily. After all, once the space here was destroyed, it would be very difficult to repair it. The loss outweighed the gain. Interesting. Are they going to fight to the death by creating their own world? Jiyu Fei stared at the two rapidly moving figures in front of him. The space in front of them had already been isolated from the surrounding space. The flaming dance of life and the flaming dance of death had actually created their own world. They were fighting in a world they had created, but they could attack without any qualms. These two fellows were simply too powerful. Even they had to be cautious on the flame star, because the current flame star couldn't withstand the power of an infinite prime. The power of heaven and earth on the flame star was gradually recovering. Of course, it wouldn't be possible for the power of heaven and earth on the flame star to recover to the level of the flame world in a short period of time. It would take a very long time. At this time, Yang Huatian, Hong Sheng, and the others could no longer see the two infinite primes clearly. Only Ji Yu Fei, an infinite prime, could see through the void and see the two fellows fighting in the small world. The flaming dance of life and the flaming dance of death were unleashed with all their might, and the sky was falling and the earth was cracking. Within the world they created, a terrifying destructive power spread out, and huge spatial cracks appeared in the void. These two little girls are quite capable. This was an extremely exciting show. Ji Yu Fei's eyes shone brightly as he watched. Both the flaming dance of life and the flaming dance of death were created from the flame world's will of heaven and earth. They were twins, so it was easier said than done to determine a victor. There was no suspense in this battle. It still ended in a draw. With an earth-shattering rumble, the world created by the flaming dance of life and the flaming dance of death crumbled, and the destructive power shook the void. "What, do you want me to help you?" Ji Yu Fei said to the flaming dance of life with a faint smile. "All right, let's work together. We can definitely take down my evil clone." The flaming dance of life said. The flaming dance of death was stunned when she heard this. If the two of them worked together, she would be in trouble. "Actually, I can help you, but it depends on whether you can promise me one thing." Ji Yu Fei suddenly turned around and said to the flaming dance of death. "What?" The flaming dance of life was stunned. "Ji Yu Fei, we share a life and death relationship. If anything happens to me, you will die with me." The flaming dance of life stared at Ji Yu Fei and said coldly, "Damn, I almost forgot about that." Ji Yu Fei smiled bitterly when he heard this. He shared a life and death relationship with the flaming dance of life. If anything happened to one of them, the other would die with him. You share a life and death relationship. The flaming dance of death's face paled even more. It seems like there's no other way. Ji Yu Fei looked at the flaming dance of death and said helplessly, "There's a way." The flaming dance of death suddenly said, "What do you have in mind?" Ji Yu Fei asked curiously. "Run." As the death flame dance spoke, it instantly disappeared into the void. Ji Yu Fei was speechless. This was a good idea. The flaming dance of life had not expected the flaming dance of death to escape. Chapter 54-67. No one had expected the death flame dance to escape. "What should we do now?" Ji Yu Fei asked the life flame dance. "What else can we do?" The life flame dance also disappeared into the void, leaving Ji Yu Fei in a daze. These two girls. Ji Yu Fei smiled bitterly. In a flash, he appeared in the sky above the blazing island. He waved his right hand and put away the primal chaos seal that was floating above the blazing island. At this moment, the netherworld sea was still surging. Ji Yu Fei extended his right hand and pressed down gently. Then, the surface of the netherworld sea became as calm as a mirror. Yang Huatian and Hong Sheng were shocked when they saw this. Their master was too powerful. He could even suppress the surging netherworld sea with a single palm. Ji Yu Fei entered the blazing island directly. Yang Huatian ran to the blazing island to pay a visit to Ji Yu Fei. At this moment, the members of the fire tribe were overjoyed to have escaped death. All of them knelt at Ji Yu Fei's feet and were in awe of Ji Yu Fei. Hong Sheng also wanted to enter the island, but he was blocked by the array on the island. He couldn't enter at all and could only wait anxiously outside. "All right, all of you get up and follow me out of here." Ji Yu Fei looked at the patriarchs of the fire tribe who were kneeling at his feet and said, "Yes, master." The members of the fire tribe were overjoyed because no one wanted to stay here. The blazing island was definitely not a treasure land. Although there was a small divine spring of life on the blazing island, it was too small to provide all the patriarchs of the fire tribe with the spiritual energy they needed to cultivate. In a place like Blazing Island, it was impossible for the Yang tribe to become truly powerful. If the fire tribe wanted to have a lasting legacy, they had to leave the netherworld sea and obtain a real divine spring of life. Only then would the fire tribe be strong forever. Of course, there was no such thing as eternal existence in this world. Even if the fire tribe successfully obtained a divine spring of life, they wouldn't be strong forever. "Let's go." Jiu Fei waved his right hand and kept all the clansmen of the Flame Clan on Flame Island into his small world. Then, he soared into the sky and appeared in the sky above Flame Island. Master, Hong Sheng greets you. Hong Sheng, who was blocked by the great array of the blazing island, rushed over and knelt before Jiu Fei the moment he saw Jiu Fei come out of the island. Get up and come back with me. After saying that, Jiu Fei disappeared into the void. So fast. Hong Sheng was shocked. Even he couldn't see how Jiu Fei had walked or which direction he was heading in. In the Hong Meng Divine City, Jiu Fei teleported to the space above the city. That's right, it was that fast. Jiu Fei, who was at the major success stage of Supreme Ultimate Stage, could reach the place he wanted with just a thought. Even a half-step peerless realm expert like Hong Sheng had to fly for half a day to return to the Hong Meng Divine City from the Nether Seer. This was the difference between a half-step peerless realm expert and a true peerless realm expert. Jiu Fei appeared on the plaza of the Hong Meng Divine City. The layers of defensive formations were useless in front of him. None of the ancestors in the Hong Meng Divine City noticed Jiu Fei's arrival. When Jiu Fei waved his right hand, the Flame Clan's clansmen were released from his pocket dimension. Only then did the Grand Mist Divine Race's ancestors rush out of the city. Yang Huatian's aura was too strong. The moment he came out of Jiu Fei's small world, his aura enveloped the entire Hong Meng Divine City. The sudden appearance of the tyrannical aura scared the ancestors of the Grand Mist Divine Clan out of their wits, and they almost pissed their pants in fear. It's Yang Huatian's aura. How is this possible? The ancestors of the Hong Meng Divine Race were very familiar with Yang Huatian's aura. Yang Huatian actually killed his way into the city. The old ancestor has gone to the Nether Seer. What should we do? The ancestors of the Hong Meng Divine Race panicked. Their number one ancestor, Hong Sheng, wasn't in the Hong Meng Divine City. No one in the city was a match for Yang Huatian. Its master, the ancestor of the Hong Meng Divine Race, Hong Shan, saw Jiu Fei standing in the sky above the plaza. All the ancestors of the Hong Meng Divine Race heaved a sigh of relief when they saw Jiu Fei. As long as their master was around, Yang Huatian wouldn't dare to do anything to them. After all, the entire Hong Meng Divine Race had submitted to Jiu Fei. It seemed like their master had brought the members of the Fire Tribe into the Hong Meng Divine City. Other than their master, who else could bring the members of the Fire Tribe into the Hong Meng Divine City without anyone knowing? At this time, the ancestors of the Grand Mist Divine Race rushed into the square. The members of the Fire Tribe and the ancestors of the Hong Meng Divine Race stood in a stalemate. Both sides were ready to fight at any moment. Yang Huatian looked at the ancestors of the Hong Meng Divine Race with disdain. In his eyes, these fellows were as weak as ants. He wanted to kill all the ancestors of the Hong Meng Divine Race, and this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. As the ancestor of the Hong Meng Divine Race, Hong Sheng wasn't in the city. No one in the city was a match for Yang Huatian. However, Yang Huatian knew that his master, Jiu Fei, wouldn't allow him to kill all the ancestors of the Hong Meng Divine Race. If he dared to make a move, he would be the first to die. Therefore, no matter how much Yang Huatian wanted to kill all the ancestors of the Hong Meng Divine Race, he wouldn't dare to make a move unless he was tired of living. Yang Huatian didn't want to die. The grudges between your two races are written off. Are you willing to do so? Jiu Fei stood in the sky above the plaza and looked down at the ancestors of the Hong Meng Divine Race. What? The ancestors of the Hong Meng Divine Race were shocked when they heard Huang Xiaolong's words. Their master wanted them to reconcile with the Hong Meng Divine Race. The ancestors of the Hong Meng Divine Race felt the same way. The grudges between them and the Hong Meng Divine Race were going to be written off with a single sentence from Jiu Fei. The ancestors of the Hong Meng Divine Race were unwilling to accept this outcome. After all, the Hong Meng Divine Race had forced the Hong Meng Divine Race to venture into the Nether Seer. If the Hong Meng Divine Race hadn't been lucky enough to find an island, they would have been annihilated. Many of the Hong Meng Divine Race's experts had died in the hands of the Hong Meng Divine Race's ancestors. The Hong Meng Divine Race and Hong Meng Divine Race had been enemies for generations, and they had been fighting for countless years. Initially, the Hong Meng Divine Race hadn't been able to defeat the Hong Meng Divine Race. The Hongmeng divine race had wanted to use this opportunity to annihilate the Hongmeng divine race. Who would have thought that Ji Yufei would return? Chapter 5468. Ji Yufei brought the entire Yang clan from the Netherseer back to Hongmeng Divine City. When the Yang clan appeared on the square of Hongmeng Divine City, the entire Hongmeng Divine City was in an uproar. All the clansmen of Hongmeng Divine Race were terrified. No one knew what had happened. When Yang Huatian's domineering aura enveloped the entire Grand Mist Divine City, even the ancestors of the Grand Mist Divine Race couldn't help but tremble in fear. Their number one ancestor, Hong Sheng, wasn't in the city. The consequences of Yang Huatian's appearance in Hongmeng Divine City were obvious. After all, Hongmeng Divine Race had defeated the Yang clan and driven them into the Netherseer. They had almost been annihilated. The Hongmeng Divine Race and Yang clan were sworn enemies. The hatred between the two clans had reached the point of irreconcilable enmity. However, a variable had appeared, and it was none other than Ji Yufei. Since the Hongmeng Divine Race had submitted to Ji Yufei, the two clans couldn't take revenge on each other. At this time, the atmosphere in Hongmeng Divine City was tense. The ancestors of Hongmeng Divine Race and Yang clan were in a standoff. In terms of numbers, Hongmeng Divine Race had an absolute advantage. Including Yang Huatian, the Yang clan only had 7 ancestors. On the other hand, the Grand Mist Divine Race had more than a dozen ancestor-level existences. In terms of numbers, Hong Sheng wasn't in the city. The problem was that Hong Sheng wasn't in the city. Yang Huatian, the number one ancestor of the Hongmeng Divine Race, was here. Not to mention the dozen or so Grand Mist Divine Race's ancestors. Even if dozens of Grand Mist Divine Race's ancestors attacked together, they wouldn't be a match for Yang Huatian. This was the gap between them. An existence at the half-step boundless realm could crush the ancestors of Hongmeng Divine Race. Yang Huatian alone could annihilate all the clansmen in Hongmeng Divine City. Yang Huatian really wanted to attack, but he didn't dare to do so with Ji Yufei around. How about we write off the enmity between your two clans? Ji Yufei asked the ancestors of Hongmeng Divine Race and Yang clan. The members of the Grand Mist Divine Race and Fire clan were stupefied. The two clans had been fighting for countless years, and countless people had died at each other's hands. How could this feud be resolved with just a few words from Ji Yufei? However, since their master had said so, even if they were 1,000 or 10,000 times unwilling, they wouldn't dare to say half a no. What? None of you are convinced? How could Ji Yufei not see their unwillingness? I wouldn't dare. The people from the Yang clan and Grand Mist Divine Race lowered their heads. Even Yang Huatian, a half-step peerless expert, didn't dare to let out a fart. You say you don't dare, but you're very unhappy, aren't you? Ji Yufei said indifferently. Beads of cold sweat formed on the foreheads of the Grand Mist Divine Race and Fire clan's ancestors. Their master was an invincible existence. Their life and death were in the hands of their master. If Ji Yufei wanted to kill them, he only needed to think about it. Since that's the case, I'll give you a chance to settle your hatred. Ji Yufei said solemnly. Master, Yang Huatian and the others didn't know what Ji Yufei wanted to do, and they felt uneasy. The Grand Mist Divine Race's ancestors were also at a loss. One had to know that the grudge between the Flame Clan and the Grand Mist Divine Clan wasn't something that could be resolved so easily. How about this? I'll set up a battle stage in the square, and each of you will send out 3 people to fight 3 rounds of life and death battles. All grudges will be resolved in these 3 battles. Ji Yufei's expression turned solemn as he swept his gaze over everyone. The Grand Mist Divine Race and Fire Clan's ancestors were dumbfounded. What? You don't agree? Ji Yufei's expression turned ugly. No, we'll do it this way, Yang Huatian quickly said. Very well, what about you guys? Ji Yufei looked at the group of Grand Mist Divine Race's ancestors. Master, our ancestor isn't here. Hong Shan, one of the Grand Mist Divine Race's ancestors, said cautiously. We will obey Master's orders. Right at this moment, a voice rang out. Then, a figure descended from the sky and landed in front of Ji Yufei. He knelt before Ji Yufei. It's the ancestor. The Grand Mist Divine Race's ancestors were pleasantly surprised when they saw the newcomer. Their ancestor had returned. The newcomer was Hong Sheng, the ancestor of the Grand Mist Divine Race. He had rushed back from the Netherseer and finally arrived at the Grand Mist Divine City. Very well, it's decided then, Ji Yufei said as he disappeared into the void. Hong Sheng, Yang Huatian, on the square, Yang Huatian and Hong Sheng glared at each other, and strong killing intent erupted from their bodies. They were enemies who would not rest until one of them was dead. The two camps were at daggers drawn, but no one dared to make a move. Tomorrow will be the day you die. Yang Huatian gritted his teeth as he stared at Hong Sheng. The one who dies tomorrow will be you. Hong Sheng sneered. The two half-step peerless divine race experts stared at each other for more than 2 hours before Hong Sheng left with the rest of the Grand Mist Divine Race's ancestors. As for the Yang clan, they set up camp on the square. At this time, the Grand Mist Divine City was bustling with noise and excitement. Countless Grand Mist Divine Race members in the city knew that the Yang clan had arrived. The Yang clan was in the city square. Countless members of the Grand Mist Divine Race rushed to the square in a frenzy. However, they were stopped at the entrance of the square. The hatred between the Grand Mist Divine Race and the Yang clan was too deep. Countless Grand Mist Divine Race members cursed and wanted to rush into the square to fight the Yang clan members. However, every entrance of the square was guarded by an ancestor of the Grand Mist Divine Race. No one could barge into the square. TCH, you bunch of fools. Come in and fight me if you have the gut. Some of the Yang clan members shouted at the Grand Mist Divine Race members standing outside the square. What? The Grand Mist Divine Race members standing outside the square became even more furious. Ancestor, let us go in and kill them. Ancestor, we have to kill these bastards to avenge our fallen clansmen. The Grand Mist Divine Race members standing outside the square cried out in grief. All of you, go back. Hong Shan, who was guarding one of the entrances, roared at his clansmen. Ancestor. The Grand Mist Divine Race members' eyes turned red. I said, all of you, go back. Hong Shan roared. If he allowed his clansmen to barge into the square and fight the Yang clan members, they would definitely anger Ji Yufei. That wouldn't be a good thing for the entire Grand Mist Divine Race. With Ji Yufei's cultivation, he could annihilate the entire Grand Mist Divine Race in an instant. He could also subdue other powerful clans for his use. The two powerful clans provoked each other, and the hatred between the two clans intensified. At this time, Ji Yufei was resting in the main hall of the City Lord's Manor. Chapter 5469. No one could change Ji Yufei's mind. That night was a sleepless night for everyone in Hongmeng City. After tomorrow, the grudge between the Yang clan and the primordial divine race would vanish like smoke in thin air. Ji Yufei wanted to settle the grudge between the Yang clan and the primordial divine race in 3 matches. No matter who won, the Yang clan and the primordial divine race would not be allowed to seek revenge after tomorrow. This was Ji Yufei's chance to settle the grudge between the Yang clan and the primordial divine race. No matter how fierce the conflict between the two clans had been, everything would be written off after tomorrow. Old ancestor, how could you agree to Master's request? In a pavilion in Hongmeng City, the first ancestor of the primordial divine race, Hong Sheng, sat on the main seat, while the other ancestors of the primordial divine race sat on both sides of him. Hong Fei, one of the ancestors, spoke up. All the patriarchs present looked at Hong Sheng, who was sitting at the head of the table. Hong Sheng didn't speak, but Hong Mie, who was sitting beside him, spoke. You bunch of fools. How could the old ancestor not agree to that? Hong Mie roared at the ancestors in front of him. All the ancestors present fell silent. Who didn't know how strong Ji Yufei was? Moreover, their lives were in Ji Yufei's hands. If Ji Yufei wanted to kill them, it would only take a single thought. Then who should we send? Hong Du, another ancestor of the primordial divine race, asked cautiously. Isn't that obvious? The old ancestor will naturally participate, and I will also participate. Hong Mie swept a glance at everyone as he spoke coldly. Out of the 3 slots, they had occupied 2 of them. However, None of the ancestors present dared to express any dissatisfaction. Hong Sheng was the first ancestor of the primordial divine race, while Hong Mie was the second ancestor. As the first and second ancestors of the primordial divine race, they were naturally the most qualified to represent the primordial divine race. As for the third candidate, whoever was stronger would go. Other than the first and second ancestor, who was the strongest person in the Grand Mist Divine Clan? All the ancestors present wanted to represent the Grand Mist Divine Clan in this battle because they knew that this would be the last time they fought against the Yang Clan. Because no one dared to go against Jiyu Fei. Whether it was the Flame Clan or the Grand Mist Clan, who dared to disobey Jiyu Fei? At this moment, the entire place quietened down. The dozen or so old ancestors all looked at their old ancestor. The first ancestor of the primordial divine tribe had lived for countless years and was the most senior existence in the primordial divine tribe. Even the second ancestor, who was 2 generations younger than the first ancestor, had to address Hong Sheng as master. There was no need to mention the other ancestors of the Grand Mist Divine Clan. Who would represent the Grand Mist Divine race? At this time, even the first ancestor's words were useless. Whoever was the strongest would go. All of you, enter my inner world and fight it out. Hong Sheng said as he waved his right hand. All the ancestors of the Grand Mist Divine tribe, except for the second ancestor, disappeared from their seats. While the Grand Mist Divine tribe was choosing who to fight, the Yang clan's ancestors had gathered in the public square of the Grand Mist Divine city. They also wanted to choose who would fight against the Grand Mist Divine tribe. The Yang clan's first ancestor, Yang Huatian, had to fight, and there was no suspense. However, the remaining 2 people were difficult to choose. This was because Jiyu Fei had set a rule that they could only fight against the Grand Mist Divine tribe in 3 battles. Regardless of the outcome of these 3 battles, the grudge between them and the Grand Mist Divine tribe would be written off. Who would dare to violate the rule set by Jiyu Fei? Therefore, the Yang clan and the Grand Mist Divine tribe placed great importance on this battle, as the significance of this battle was really different from the past. This wasn't just a matter of victory or defeat, but it also concerned the honor of each race. In fact, even though Jiyu Fei had set the rule of 3 battles to settle the grudge between the Yang clan and the Grand Mist Divine tribe, in reality, this battle also concerned who would become Jiyu Fei's number 1 subordinate. If the Grand Mist Divine tribe lost, in Jiyu Fei's eyes, they would be inferior to the Yang clan. It was the same for the Yang clan. How could they be inferior to the Grand Mist Divine tribe? Old ancestor, you should be the one to choose. The Yang clan's ancestor, Yang Hui, said. The other Yang clan's ancestors also looked at Yang Huatian. The current Yang clan's strength was much weaker than the Grand Mist Divine tribe. Currently, the Yang clan only had 7 ancestors left. The Yang clan's second and third ancestor had died in battle. Although the Yang clan's first ancestor Yang Huatian's cultivation was in the half-step peerless realm, none of the other ancestors had reached the major completion of the eternal realm. On the other hand, the Grand Mist Divine tribe had the second ancestor who had reached the major completion of the eternal realm. The Yang clan's ancestors knew very well that whoever went against the Grand Mist Divine tribe's second ancestor, Yang Mie, would only have one ending, death. Old ancestor, let me go. The Yang clan's ancestor, Yang Ming, suddenly said. He only had a low-level eternal realm cultivation. If he went against Hong Mie, he wouldn't even be able to block a single move from Hong Mie. He would be killed instantly. If Yang Ming went out, he would be sending himself to his death. The other Yang clan's ancestors stared at Yang Ming with grief and indignation. Yang Ming, you shouldn't be sending yourself to death like this. The Yang clan's ancestor Yang Hui said angrily. That's right. Even if we know we're going to lose, we can't let them win so easily. The Yang clan's ancestor Yang Song roared. Ancestors, let me go. If I go, our clan's losses can be minimized. Yang Ming insisted. He was only a low-level eternal realm expert. It didn't matter if he died. This way, he could let the mid-level eternal realm ancestors live. Yang Ming, only now did everyone understand what Yang Ming meant. He was going to die, but it was to preserve the Yang clan's strength. Yang Ming had no choice but to make such a sacrifice. Do you really want to do this? Yang Huatian stared at Yang Ming with a solemn expression. I hope that old ancestor can fulfill my wish. Yang Ming's attitude was firm. Since you insist, I have nothing else to say. Yang Huatian sighed. It was a little difficult to choose who the last representative of the Yang clan would be. Because in the Yang clan, there were two old ancestors with mid-level eternal realm cultivation. These two old ancestors were Yang Sen and Yang Lian. I'll go. I've cultivated longer than you, and my combat power is stronger than yours. Yang Sen said to Yang Lian. Uncle Sen, you can't say that. I think I'm stronger than you. Yang Lian said confidently. Neither of them backed down. Both of them wanted to fight. All right, stop fighting. The two of you, enter my inner world and have a fight. Whoever wins will be the one to fight. Yang Huatian didn't waste any words and directly threw the two into his inner world. The other old ancestors were speechless.